check that the live stream has started. It has started, thank you. And again, I would like to welcome everyone to today's meeting. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and proceed to the assembly area in the car park. The nearest exits are through reception, at the rear of the canteen, through the doors behind you, past the leader's office. Please note that the Council is webcasting this meeting live on the internet and making an official recording. The recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Please choose your words carefully. Can members please ensure mobile phones are turned off and that background noise is kept to a minimum? To help everyone hear clearly, members are asked to remain seated and to speak clearly. Throughout this meeting, the Vice Chairperson will keep a list of members intending to speak during the debates. The Vice Chairperson will call the next speaker during debates and will announce your microphone number, as we have carried out the last many times. I should also remind everyone that filming, photography and recording of this meeting is permitted, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If there are any members of the public who do not wish to be filmed or photographed, and you have not already informed a member of staff, please raise your hand now so that any such photographer or cameraman may be aware. Contributions to this meeting will be timed in accordance with the time limits for debates. When your time is up, I will ask you to finish the sentence you are on and stop speaking. Finally, I would like to explain the procedure for the Leaders' Report, as has been advised in an email to all members earlier in the week. When we reach the Leaders' Report, I will read out each of the topic headings contained in the report and call for all questions on that heading. Once all questions have been asked, I will move on to the next topic heading. I will also allow more than one question from members, but up to a maximum of 3 questions altogether. And I will provide preference to members who have not previously asked a question. Please avoid posing questions already asked, and note that this is an opportunity to ask a question, not to make a speech. I will ask you to pose a question if one does not appear to be forthcoming. I will limit questions under the Leaders' Report to 1 hour in total. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillors Polly Andrews, Bowes, Fagan, Hitchener, and also Councillor Graham Andrews, Councillor Kath Hay, Councillor Jeremy Milne, Councillor Ginman and Councillor Crockett. Are there any other apologies? No, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest in respect of Schedule 1, Schedule 2, or other interests from members in respect of items on the agenda. And this item is to receive any declarations of interest by members in respect of items on this agenda. Members who have declared an interest and withdrawn from the meeting will be readmitted once the item has been concluded. Do any members have any interests to declare? No, thank you. We now move to the minutes of meeting, item number 3, pages 9 to 32. To approve and sign the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 29th of July 2022 and the extraordinary meeting held on the 30th of September 2022. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Please note the supplement published on the 20th of October containing an updated appendix of public questions to the minutes of the extraordinary meeting on the 30th of September. The updated appendix contains a written response to a supplementary question that was not available at the time of publication of the agenda. Members, are you in agreement with the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 29th of July and the extraordinary meeting of the 30th of September, subject to the updated appendix of public questions? Will you please show? All in. Thank you very much. Item 4, Chairman and Chief Executive's announcements. And please find attached the Chairman and Chief Executive's announcements from page 33 on the agenda. Just like to make one or two comments, if I may. Interesting tour of Enmite, I think, is looking a very promising organisation. Should produce some very good results for Herefordshire and Hereford City itself, and I hope the whole country eventually. I also had an interesting day at the Cadets' annual camp and down in Salisbury Plain. And also, very interesting to note that 40% of the cadets were girls and doing very well indeed. And that's very laudable, I think, and interesting. We've had some BEM British Empire Medal presentations, including to a splendid 94-year-old who was as sharp as any tack that I've ever met, and very interesting to talk to. And also, we opened the Ross and Monmouth Marine Cadet Barracks. Not many CCF have such things as Marines in their ranks, and it was very good to see such a smart turnout as well. And then, of course, we had the very sad death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and then we had the proclamation of the new king outside the west door of Hereford Cathedral. And I must give my many thanks to the staff of this council who worked tirelessly to make that happen in a very, very short time. And apparently Herefordshire did itself proud, and we were far better than many other places, apparently. That's very gratifying to hear. But I did think it went off extremely well, and thank you to everybody who turned up, and to particularly, as I said, to all our staff who made it work so well. And also, we did a mayor's meeting and the Waterworks Museum Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. A very well-deserved credit, I think, to the Waterworks Museum. Superb efforts made there. And also there is Emma, our county steamroller, who is, I hope, shortly going to go back into operation, fully retubed and raring to go. Though she apparently won't be allowed out very far because she's rather heavy. Probably our roads won't stand it. But she is a wonderful creature. And I have to say that our citizenship ceremonies are also very well attended and are much appreciated. And every new citizen finds that the present of a Herefordshire wooden apple is a very special moment for their first day of being British citizens and citizens of Herefordshire. And a very good Samaritans and Sapphire concert, and that was a tremendous occasion in the cathedral. Chief Executive, do you have some announcements you'd like to make?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one from me, really, and it builds on the report and the reference to the Ofsted inspection and our work in children's services. And I know this is quite rightly a subject that's really close to members' hearts and is a live issue for all of us at the moment. We've arranged a series of all-member briefings for next Thursday, the 27th, two during the day and afternoon at 1 o'clock, and then an evening at 6. That will be a real opportunity for us to share with members where we are with the live issues that are currently being discussed in a range of meetings, as well as taking the opportunity to share progress with the immediate priorities following the outcome of the inspection and the process as we go forward with regards to the ongoing development of the improvement plan. And then last but not least will be Eleanor Brazil will be joining us to talk about her role as the Commissioner, but also to give members the opportunity to raise issues and questions with her directly. I know a number of members have met on a one-to-one basis, but it is a wider opportunity for everyone to have that same opportunity to raise issues and questions. So important sessions. I'm conscious it is half-term, and some members may well be away, so we are thinking about almost a third session either the following week or the week after, just to keep the communication channels open here. but if you could find a way to join us, that would be extremely helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Item 5. Questions from members of the public. There has been one question submitted under this item. The question and response has been published as a supplement on the 20th of October. And Ms. Reid has put in a question, a supplementary question, which I will now read out to you. Please fully answer my public questions, e.g. updated structure chart. I note that the Improvement Board has 29 members from various organisations and professions, including 3 school representatives. However, it does not include any representatives of families who have experience of receiving children's services support, e.g., whose child is a child in need. It is regarded as good practice to include those with lived experience of personally using services to be involved in improving them, e.g., the government-commissioned independent review of children's social care. As time is of the essence, there could be co-optees to the Improvement Board from representative of families co-optee, Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee, support group, a common bond, parent-carer, voice, send. Do you recommend that 3 co-optees are appointed to the Improvement Board as soon as possible to voice the perspective of families? I think the Cabinet Member, Councillor Toynbee. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. That's a good question and a timely question. At the moment, our Director of Children's Services and our Commissioner and our DFE Advisor are reviewing the membership of the Improvement Board, and I'll pass on those suggestions. As we know, a lot of important work goes on between meetings as well, and I'm really pleased that Gladys and Eleanor are having a lot of conversations with a wide range of people in Herefordshire, which is really important. And I completely agree that we must work with families we work with to be part of improving our services, and that's one of my priorities. And it's got to be meaningful, not just tokenistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to item 6, questions from members of the Council, and there have been no questions submitted under this item. Item 7, appointments to Council committees and outside bodies. To make appointments to the committees of the Council and outside bodies in line with the rules of political proportionality. Members will find the report concerning appointments to Council committees from page 37. I will propose recommendations A and B en bloc. Please, can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Before moving to the vote, please can members indicate if they wish to speak under this item. And Councillor Harvey, do you wish to speak now or later or not at all?
Not at all, I think, Chairman.
Thank you. So, anyone wishes to speak? No. And now we move to the vote. The recommendations in the report have been moved. I will conduct a vote on recommendations A and B en bloc. Members are asked to clearly raise their hand to indicate if they are for, against, or abstain for the motion. All in favour? Thank you. Against? Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Thank you. That is carried. And the recommendations of the allocation of seats on each committee to political groups as set out in paragraph 8 be approved, and the number of seats on the Scrutiny Management Board and the allocation of those seats to political groups as set out in paragraph 9 are approved, and they have been. So thank you very much. Now come to item 8, Leader's Report, pages 43 to 70. To receive a report from the Leader on the activities of the Executive, the Cabinet, since the meeting of Council on the 29th of July 2022. Please find the leader's report from page 43 onwards to 70. I invite the Deputy Leader to present the report and to respond to any questions arising. And she has 5 minutes for that. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to present this report to Council. I'm looking forward to questions from members. I will do my best to answer those on the leader's behalf. There's plenty to ask questions on, if I can't answer the questions, then I will be looking for support from Cabinet members and look to the Chairman's discretion to assist me in that. You've read it all, so let's have the debate.
Well, not so much a debate as questions, I think.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So members are reminded that they may ask up to 3 questions upon different sections of this report, but there will be no debate on matters contained in it. I remind members that this is an opportunity to ask a question of the Deputy Leader. Please can members be brief when posing their question and avoid repeating points already covered. As already outlined at the start of the meeting, I will group questions along topic headings. Please note that this is an opportunity to ask a question, not to make a speech. I will ask you to pose a question if one does not appear to be forthcoming. And the Vice Chairperson will be keeping a list of members who wish to question. The first topic is Household Support Fund on page 44. Please can members indicate if they have a question, and just on this particular topic. Right. Vice Chairperson.
Yes, but first speaker is Councillor Gandhi, number 5.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, and I'm pleased to see the Officer well again. Mine is regarding probably section C. Myself and Barry received notification yesterday of our winter fuel allowance. We are very fortunate, as are a number of people in Herefordshire, that we do not actually need our winter fuel allowance. We can manage without it. And I'm sure there are others in Herefordshire of the same situation. You cannot refuse your winter fuel allowance, and I would want and will donate my winter fuel allowance to a voluntary organisation that I can be sure will use that money to support people specifically with their energy bills who are unable to do so because they are not in as fortunate a position as I am. Now, my question is, does the Council know of such an organisation that is set up specifically for that purpose? Because if it's for general use, I can send it to Save the Children or somewhere like that. Or would the Council consider setting up some sort of fund that residents in Herefordshire who feel like me, somewhat of a fraud, taking a winter fuel allowance which lots of people will use to spend on a winter holiday abroad, which could be used better by people who need it far more than we do.
Thank you, Councillor Gandhi. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Gandhi, for your question and for the very public-spirited and generous sentiment behind it. I don't know, but I will find out, and if there is an organisation in Herefordshire, then I'll provide a written response so that members can know about it. If not, I will ask officers to look into whether we can set up a fund similar to the one that you suggest. And thank you very much for making that suggestion.
Might I suggest, Deputy Leader, that also this be promulgated perhaps in the Hereford Times, so other members of the community, more widely spread, can perhaps contribute as well, if they wish to.
That's what I intended to do with my report.
Well, when we understand what's available, we'll make sure that we promote it.
Thank you. Next question on the same topic.
Next speaker is Councillor Mike Jones, number 21.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's about the food vouchers for free school meals. Given the cost, the rise in inflation cost, I don't know who sets the £15 school voucher, but I just question, is that enough with inflation running at 10%? You find it very difficult to find a meal for £3 then.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. It probably isn't enough, but it was all that we had available, given that the first 6 months of the year grant that was provided by government did have constraints in terms of how we were allowed to spend it. When the grant was unconstrained, previous years, we were able to provide funding at a level of £40 per child. But this first 6 months of the year, so from April through to September, which is what this report is covering here, we were required to spend only a third of the funding on children. So we spread the money as far as we were able to. Members who were able to attend the political consultation that went on yesterday about how we're proposing to spend the funding that has been received for the second half of the year will have heard that we intend to increase the amount of funding that is provided to children on free school meals during the winter. We're very pleased to be able to do that, and there are slightly fewer restrictions on how we spend this money than the money in the first half of the year, for which we're grateful.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Councillor Marsh, number 9.
Yes, it was an excellent meeting yesterday, with very useful to hear how we had spent the 1.3 million and delighted the next tranche is coming. Our food bank in Leominster say that many of their families are not eligible for free school meals. So I'm asking if in this next tranche we might widen out to, for instance, include breakfast clubs for the quite large number of children who live in households who are just above the threshold for free school meals or for some other reason haven't claimed. Thank you.
And
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Deputy Leader.
thank you for the question. We're not providing support only to free school meals. We're actually providing support through a number of different routes. We recognise that there are lots of families who fall just the wrong side of the line. And what we're doing with support organisations and partners is providing a number of different routes by which support can be provided to families and to children. And also we're looking at whether there are ways of preparing to do something a little bit more joined up in the medium term. Maybe reverting to the prepayment cards that were very popular in Herefordshire in terms of providing cards with funding loaded onto them, so people aren't limited in terms of where they can take the free school meal vouchers and that sort of thing. So we're looking at creating a bit of flexibility for families and also helping people to spend the money more locally and on more locally produced food.
Thank you. More questions?
Yes, next speaker is Councillor James, number 15.
Thank you, Chair. I'd caution against the Council setting up some sort of organisation in order to distribute the monies so collected. There are a number of organisations within the county, I mean, including food banks, that would be more than grateful to receive some financial support. What I also am very concerned about is that we have supermarkets, and one in particular, that collect for the food banks. For instance, Tesco in Belmont. Those donations that are given by the public are not distributed in Herefordshire. They're taken to Monmouth and distributed there. Now, I think that and that is a fact until recently, unless they've just changed it. And you know, the public this is what I'm concerned about, the fact that large organisations are so bureaucratic that
Councillor, are we having a question?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm asking that do we caution against the Deputy Leader, caution against setting up a bureaucratic system whereby, you know, we can spend more on distributing money as a council than we actually distribute. And that is the problem with public services. Tesco being an example where people are donating, not for the local community, but to other communities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. I think you were listening to a different answer to the one that I gave, or indeed to the question that Councillor Gandy asked. I think it's pretty clear that I did not offer to set up anything that was in competition. Councillor Gandy asked whether there were organisations that already existed, and if none existed, if we could examine what the approach was that might be appropriate to assist with enabling people to donate fuel payments in an effective manner. And that's what I'm very happy to say that we'll look at.
Councillor Davis, who would wish to add to that? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, Councillor Davis, Gemma Davis, number 3.
Just a quick one, really. That I don't think poverty is a local issue. I think there's a national issue, and I just think we need to be very cautious when we're calling out organisations that are trying to do something. Just a quick look on Google sees that yesterday Tesco pledged £1 million worth of support for food banks and charities. So I just think we need to be careful when we're calling out organisations.
Thank you. Do we have any more on this particular topic? Or is that it?
Yes, we do. We have Councillor Kenyon. Next topic, okay. So that's it.
That's
Chairman.
it, thank you. The next topic, housing, land supply and housing delivery. Any takers?
No.
We have
So
Councillor Stark.
Councillor Stark, who is 23. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to refer to Appendix 2 that's attached to the Leaders' Report on page 56, where one of the objectives in that, under connectivity, is that we will have a long-term travel plan for the county, including travel choices, I think, prioritised on walking and cycling. In discussions in my scrutiny committee on the local plan and the consultations that there have been on it, I really would like to ask the Deputy Leader whether she will ensure that any proposals for the spatial options and the place setting that come out of the local plan are in line and consistent with your objective to make sure that we focus on prioritising and promoting walking and cycling across the county, and it does not end up just leading to more car use. Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Leader.
Yes.
That's it, right? Thank you. Next question. Any more questions on that topic?
No further speakers, Chair?
Nope, thank you. Item 6, housing delivery of note. Any questions? Right.
Councillor Hewitt
Number
is number 19.
Number 19, Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you very much. And, you know, I absolutely welcome the housing initiatives which are giving affordable housing and access for children or for families who have disability through Connexus. It's slightly slightly off-piece question, but could we have something, please, on the council website which gives those residents who are in Connexus estates a link whereby they can access maintenance? Because at the moment, you know, I had to ask a question through various routes to try and find someone responsible for maintenance issues on those estates as they arise. And I think it just would be really helpful to have something very clearly on our website that residents could access, please.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
I'm happy to look into how we are helping to signpost people to the right places with the social housing providers. I know some social housing providers are easier to contact and to get through to the right person than others. I'm happy to look into that. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes, Councillor Kenyon.
Councillor Kenyon, number...
I haven't got him on the list, sorry, Chairman.
24.
Apologies, Councillor Kenyon. It's not on...
No, out of my own again. Can you all got me, yeah?
Got it.
Okay. Hello, the camera. On this one, I was chatting to somebody in Connectus not so long ago. I talk to lots of people, and I do listen occasionally. But they have got some concerns because we've got these new bills coming in, these warm house bills and that sort of stuff. There's lots of things that are coming in. On the whole, are good. But the word of warning, they're looking at losing 10% of their housing stock. That's 10% of the housing stock across Herefordshire. That's 10% of the people that access them, many vulnerable, will lose their houses because it's unaffordable or they just physically cannot get it up to the standards that have been put in. So I just wanted to make the council aware of that. 10% they're going to have to sell off.
Do you have a question, Councillor Kenyon?
No, I'm just making that. But okay, my question is, as we're talking about vulnerable people and how we look after them, how are we going to cope with another 10% of vulnerable people unable to get a house, a home? It's better to have a cooler house than no house.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Kenyon, for your question. I'm happy to look into the 10% figure you refer to and the reasons for it. It may well be that the tenant's right to buy, which is something that the government keeps pushing, is a factor. However, if it's an inability of the social housing landlords to afford to maintain and update their own housing stock, then that's a concern, but it's a concern for the way that they're running their businesses. And we need to be aware of that. I think more widely, our social housing landlords have been working very closely across the county with Housing England to bring forward housing developments as indeed the lead developer. And any councillors who've used their bedtime reading to be the housing delivery report will have noted the number of affordable homes which we're actually delivering across the county, and that is actually in advance of the delivery profile that was set out in what was quite an ambitious core strategy in terms of overall housing delivery numbers. So I hear your question. If your question is correct in terms of the information you've heard, I share your concern, and I'm happy to look into it further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Leader. Any more questions on that particular theme?
No, Chairman.
No, thank you. On to item 9, nutrient certainty, Luston integrated wetland. Any questions on that? Right. Councillor Mike Jones was first, I think.
Yes,
And
Councillor Mike Jones, number 21.
Thank you. Yeah, can you confirm when the Luston integrated wetland became operational, and has the council purchased any more sites for extra wetlands?
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jones. I was pleased to visit Luston Wetland week before last and actually take a look at it's in development at the moment. There's an awful lot of groundworks that are going on, a lot of moving of very large amounts of soil to create the pools through which the water will flow as it's being cleaned by the wetland plants. It's not up and running in terms of a wetland right now. It's still being built. Very happy to update members when it is actually planted and the water starts to flow. That will be a very exciting moment. In terms of what's happening with additional sites that we're looking at, I know that officers are looking at a number of sites. We are quite constrained in terms of where we can locate these wetlands because they do actually have to be located physically between the outfall of a sewage treatment works and the river. So we can't just put them anywhere along the course of the river. So there are a number of sites that are being considered as to whether or not they're suitable. I haven't got an update for you on that at the moment. Obviously, the discussions are to a degree commercially sensitive, but when we have something to say, we'll be very pleased to say it. I don't know whether Councillor Harrington has got anything more that he'd like to add on on Luston or the broader wetlands initiative.
Councillor Harrington.
Number 2. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, Deputy Leader, and thank you, Councillor Jones, for the question. I don't have anything else to add, particularly, except to say that the site will very shortly be operational, and in the meantime, the conversations are being had with developers in order of priority, and that work is going on, led by our officers in planning.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, any more questions? Yes, I think
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Phillips, number 6.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I can update everybody that Titley has also been secured, and the planning application, as I understand, is already in. So that is the second one that's online. I can update you on that. My question really related to the fact I was pleased to see that the trading in phosphate credits has begun in August, and I wanted to ask exactly how many successful credits have been completed.
In terms of the number of credits that we have available, we have 200 kilograms of phosphate to trade. I haven't got an up-to-date figure in terms of how many credits have actually been purchased by developers to create nutrient neutrality for their developments, but I'm very happy to get that figure for you, Councillor Phillips, and to provide a written response.
Thank you.
I think it would be very nice for the whole council to have that response as well.
I think I can make a standing commitment that any written response will be provided to everybody.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That's excellent. Any more questions on that line?
Yes, next speaker is Councillor Hewitt, number 19.
Councillor Hewitt.
Yeah, my question sort of laps between the two categories, and I hope that's okay with the Chair. So it goes between the Cabinet Commission. So what I would like to understand is that since we understand scientifically that 72% of our phosphate problem is agricultural diffuse, has can the Cabinet Commission please consider wetlands to mitigate agricultural diffuse areas where we know that there's a big agricultural diffuse issue? I actually have another question too, but I think I'm only allowed one.
Thank you. I'll put it through the Deputy Leader first, though.
Councillor Hewitt, thank you for your question. You're right. A large proportion of the problem is to do with how we farm the soils here in Herefordshire. It's a lot more complicated in order to identify where wetlands might be located in order to address that problem, because the problem itself is massively distributed. What the Commission will be doing is working very closely with the organisations that are already investigating options to mitigate agricultural, the backlog of phosphate that has built up in our soils and river systems as a consequence of historical farming practices. And also advising farmers on the very best, latest practice in order to minimise any increase in that problem moving ahead. If wetlands form part of that solution, that will be based on expert evidence and advice, and I'm sure the Commission will be pleased to hear more about that. But we are turning to the experts, and there is a small amount of funding that we have in order to commission works where works are not already ongoing. I don't know whether Councillor Harrington has anything additional that he wants to say on that subject.
Councillor Harrington, do you have additions?
Yeah, number 2.
Shall I speak just for
Yes.
the sake of it? I will say something, yes. I mean, we know that there's 2 major sources of pollution into our rivers in terms of phosphate. One is easy to make an intervention, well, easier, I should say, to make an intervention into, because it's a direct point of source, so you can go to a water pipe at a sewage works and you can disconnect it and make it run through a wetland. It's much more difficult in relation to the diffuse pollution that comes off essentially manure, chicken manure either being applied or manure coming off the animals, going into the watercourses or finding their way into the watercourses. And that monitoring and enforcement of that is carried out by the statutory agencies, including the EA. What we have done is developed supplementary planning document on agricultural practice as well as on building control. And in that, we will do our best to put extra emphasis or to consider cumulative effects when we consider applications. But that is in the consideration of applications rather than necessarily at this point dealing with the diffuse pollution. Obviously, there are all sorts of discussions going on in the background in relation to how to remove manure, to take it out of the county, whether that's through pyrolysis or by putting it first of all through a biodigester and then removing the crumb and taking that out of county as well. All those conversations are being had, and I'm very glad that the major producers such as Avara are taking those conversations seriously and sensibly now. So we are optimistic.
Could I just add that we are working very closely with the farming community, and we have an extremely positive relationship with them, and they are as keen as we are to address the issues, and they're leading the way in improved and best practice. So I'm very grateful for their continued cooperation and support on this.
Thank you. Is that the last question on that topic? Councillor Hardwick. What number are you?
Yeah, Councillor Hardwick is number 19.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just add that there was an example in the Hereford Times about 2 weeks ago of an individual farmer that's just put wetlands onto his farm. I just wanted to confirm that the farming community are being very active on this matter.
Thank you. Next topic. Would you have no more questions from that particular one? Thank you. Cabinet Commission restoring the River Wye catchment. Do we have questioners? Questions, remember?
So,
thank you. Councillor Balderson, followed by Councillor Shaw.
Councillor Balderson, number 4.
Thank you. Restoring the River Wye catchment is an extremely important issue which has been supported by all members as seen in past full council debates. The way I read this section of the report, the Commission is essentially a subcommittee of Cabinet, which as outlined in our Constitution can only be made by Cabinet members. So I'm really interested to understand how you will ensure transparency with transparency and member involvement in this all-important issue, and also why a standing panel of a scrutiny committee was not considered potentially the best vehicle to capture member and public experience and interest.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Balderson. This is a complicated topic, and I'm very pleased to say that we had the start-up meeting for the Commission this week, involving all of the authorities that have a stakeholding in the Wye catchment. So Powys and Monmouthshire and also Forest of Dean have asked to be involved. So we had Cabinet member representatives from each of those authorities at a start-up meeting. I would very much welcome scrutiny's involvement in our journey on this. And also, very clearly, we have the support and cooperation of the Nutrient Management Board and all the work that they continue to do on this topic. We're identifying what we're going to focus on. You've seen the scope for the Commission, and if scrutiny would like to make suggestions as to, you know, how you would like to engage with what we're doing, I'd also welcome that. I think there is likely to be interest from the scrutiny functions in the other authorities, and it may be worthwhile looking at whether there is some joint scrutiny that could be done rather than having us scrutinised from a number of different directions. But very happy to discuss that further with you.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, then Councillor Marsh.
Next speaker, Councillor Shaw, number 7.
Number 7.
Thank you. On the 4th of October, the leader wrote to all councillors suggesting that the postponed meeting to discuss phosphate with the 2 MPs for Herefordshire would likely be held on the 11th or 18th of November. Does the Deputy Leader have an update to those dates at all?
Deputy Leader?
I think I haven't got a date, but we are trying to get a date that is workable for both of our MPs' diaries. And as you can imagine, there's a lot that they are maybe a little diverted presently, although I'm sure both of our MPs continue to recognise the importance of the phosphate and river pollution issue locally. They may have some party matters that are diverting their attention. But we are trying to get one meeting to which both of our MPs can attend.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh, I think what is she?
Councillor Marsh is number 9. Thank you.
I was glad to find, having diligently got to the end of the report, that around about page 81 there is a bit more detail about the Phosphates Commission, and indeed says that it will be going to Environment and Scrutiny Committee in January 2023. I did notice that our website could do with, my question really is that the website is a little bit behind, and I understand that we may be getting minutes, but it would be really helpful now you've had the first meeting. Could I have an assurance that that website will be our website link, because it's not formally a committee, will be kept up to date and include the terms of reference, which also aren't up at the moment.
Deputy Leader?
Yes, I'm very happy to give that assurance, and actually I think that was embedded in Councillor Balderson's question, so apologies that I didn't cover that transparency query from you in my earlier response. We will be publicly publishing the minutes of the meetings and relevant documents in order to keep everybody up to date on what's happening. So I'm happy to give that assurance.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Do we have any more speakers on that?
No further speakers, Chairman.
Thank you. Then we come down to the future use of the Town Hall and number 10 St Owen's Street. Do we have takers for that? Yes. Councillor Matthews. What number is he?
Councillor Matthews is number 20.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to welcome this decision on behalf of my colleagues for the Council's assets to maximise their use. If that will help to keep the Town Hall functioning and provide funds to improve it, that's great. So it has our full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that a question?
No.
Question, do you have a question, Councillor Matthews?
No, it was merely to acknowledge that we fully support that. I can ask a question in respect,
if you want to ask a question,
in
now's your
respect
opportunity.
of this then, Chairman. Can the Deputy Leader tell us, will what's been proposed help to protect the future of the Town Hall?
No. Now's your chance.
I sincerely hope so.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
No, Chairman.
Then we come to Fostershire Progress. Yes. Councillor Howells.
Councillor Howells, number 16.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got two questions, actually. On paragraph 19, it says that North Herefordshire, 78% of subsidised premises are now ready for service. Two questions on that. One is, how many premises are there? It's great to see we're making progress. We all know it's been quite frustrating. But does ready for service mean that it's free for them, or do they have to pay for it? And how has it been promoted to these presumably vulnerable premises that they can access it? And then on paragraph 20, mention Ledbury particular, where we know, and the Deputy Leader will know, there are still very patchy areas in Ledbury where you get quite good broadband service and somewhere it's extremely poor. And we were asked a question only recently about when will some of the areas get there faster speed. So it says follow soon. It would be really good if we could get some timescales on what soon actually means. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Leader.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Howells. I haven't got the information on precisely how many premises are subsidised. I'm looking at Councillor Chowns, and I think I'm going to pass that one across, along with your question about do those premises need to pay. Right. Councillor Chowns.
Councillor Chowns.
Councillor Chowns, number 1.
Thank you, Councillor Howells, for your question. Yes, no, I don't have the specific numbers of exactly how many properties, but I'm very happy to get you a written answer to that. And we regularly publish updates on that, for example, in the monthly Leaders Report. In terms of whether ready for service means that a resident can get free service, no. You know, all internet service you have to pay for one way or the other. What it means is that residents are able to order gigabit capable broadband, which is incredible, and 78% of those premises. You know, to have that speed level, that's really extraordinary. So what public money has done in this county and others over a number of years is to subsidise the installation of the infrastructure, which is critical. Individual households then have to take up that opportunity, and generally they have a number of options of companies from which to do that through the infrastructure. Regarding your second question on paragraph 20 about more to follow soon, again, I can get you the list of which communities and at which timescales. But yeah, I think the overall picture is that we have done very well in Herefordshire with increasing access to the internet, which is crucially important, and that was demonstrated especially over the last few years as working from home and remote working has become more and more important. Very important for the economy of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions?
Yes, next speaker, Councillor Hewitt, number 19.
Hello, I've got a specific question, ward related. Wyside Parish Council have inquired because numbers of their residents have said that I think they haven't been reached by either Airband or whoever else it is, maybe it's GigaClear. And so I think for me what I'd like is some clarity about the numbers of properties yet to be served in my ward, because Golden Valley North, because I know we're hard to reach, we're the Wild West, but yeah, just a bit more clarity, please, because I've had sort of general reassurances, but no specific, oh, we haven't reached this, this and this property, and this is what we intend to do. So I'd just like a bit of help with that, please.
Thank you. Deputy Leader?
I'll pass to Councillor Chowns.
Councillor Chowns.
Thank you, Councillor. Number one.
Oh, yeah, number one,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt, for that question. I frequently receive correspondence from colleagues representing their wards, as you're doing in this meeting, asking those types of questions. I'll happily take that up after this meeting. I warmly invite all colleagues to write to me if you ever have detailed questions relating to service in your ward, and we can always provide very detailed answers to those questions.
Thank you. Yes, I think questions direct to you concerning ward matters are more appropriate than bringing it to full council, really. So be all warned and advised on that, I think. Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes, Councillor Gandy, number 5.
It's more a sort of clarification than a question, in as much as my ward is probably one of those that is in the 22% that hasn't got a lot of cover. And the problem that is the situation is that there are some places where unless a business grant can be obtained through a group of properties alongside a business, upfront paying for the installation and then the council getting a grant and paying them back, or a group of houses doing a similar thing with a community grant, then they will not get broadband because they are so remote that it is so expensive that they cannot afford, neither company can afford to provide broadband. So I think people need to understand that if you live in a very rural area, you either need to get together with a group of properties and get the quotes and pay up front, and then the council will obtain a grant to pay you back. Or if as a business, whether it be a bed and breakfast or whatever, in your community that hasn't got it, they can club together with a group of houses to obtain a business grant, but again they have to pay up front and then get that money back from the local authority via a grant.
Is there a question in there, or is it just...
That was just clarification of why.
Can I clarify the clarification?
Yes, Councillor Jones. Clarify away.
Thank you, Councillor Gandy. I just want to ensure that there's no kind of misunderstanding here. What these figures show in this report is 94.2% of properties in Herefordshire can access super-fast broadband connections. So it's only about 5% of all households in Herefordshire that can't access super-fast. Now, GigaClear is currently doing work in North Herefordshire, and 78% of the households that we are subsidising on that particular contract are now ready for service for gigabit-capable broadband, which is the highest possible level, you know, really, really super fast. So there's, of those 5% of properties that are the hardest to reach, the most remote, the most technically difficult, we have for some time now had a range of solutions in place. So we have been running community grants for the last couple of years at least. I've communicated about these to all members repeatedly. In those specific communities, we reach out through parish councils, for example, to explain the system that is available, which is that you club together and then we, as Fastershire, run a procurement process to enable the community to identify people to do it. I don't think you're right in saying people have to pay for the upfront cost of that and then it is repaid. That
My
is a
residents
process,
have done.
That is a process that is run by us. If there's a very specific case, that sounds like, perhaps let's have a conversation about it. But the system is that we organise that for communities. There are also individuals whose houses are so expensive to reach and so isolated from others that there's a special grant programme for them to apply to too. Plus, there is another grant programme that we've put in place in the last 9 months called the Digital Household Grant, which is for households that have been affected by the problems caused by the collapse of some internet installation companies, including in areas like Councillor Hewitt's area, where we have supported individual households to be able to meet the costs of installation of satellite broadband as a temporary stopgap measure until the installation of the full ground-based infrastructure can be put in place. So there's quite a complex kind of ecosystem of financial support available for communities that are at the end of the rollout program because of issues around physical isolation. And if, again, I repeat, if any colleagues have concerns about specific households or communities within their walls, please do write to me directly. I will work with you and with the Fastershire Operations Manager to address them immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any more questions on this particular topic?
Yes, Councillor Swindlehurst, number 13.
Just picking up on the digital household grant, which is something that affects my ward. I believe there are around over 2,000 households that were impacted by the GigaClear contract change, and the uptake is in the 300s. So my question is, can we do any more to let those households know that this grant is available? And actually all members need to be part of that. And the other thing is that is the money going to roll forward, or is there going to be a kind of a cut-off point with the grant?
Thank you, Councillor. Do you want to put this straight to Councillor Charles?
Please.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Councillor Swinglehurst. Yes, I've been engaged in repeated conversations with officers or with the Fastershire programme operators regarding the need to ensure that we absolutely maximise take-up of the digital household grant and doing additional publicity work around that. It does take a little bit of time. The households have to have a survey to identify which is the best technical solution and so forth. But yeah, we are committed to driving that up and emphasise to anybody in those affected areas, this option is open to you and we're really keen for you to take it up. Regarding the any cut-off time for funding, I don't think there is, but I will check and get you a written answer on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions on that particular topic?
No further speakers, Chairman.
Thank you. Then we go on to UK Shared Prosperity Investment Plan. Any takers? Councillor Phillips, number
six. Thank you.
Yes, my question is allied to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is the Rural Prosperity Fund of 1.7 million, which has come in. In this county, we have a very long and successful track record of our ability to pull down rural grants for rural areas to help and support the rural economy. I'm conscious that this money is particularly focused and should be focused on rural areas outside our market towns. And what I'm seeking today is to seek some reassurance that that is going to be the case where the bulk of this money will be going, so that it will be allied to support those very small businesses. There are many small businesses that exist and successful businesses in rural areas, that they are also targeting the conversion of buildings into actual places of work, and also the support that can be given to village halls and community grants and community projects, which again would add to the improvement and well-being of the community.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips, for that question. I haven't got in my head the definition of what the enabling and constraining factors are associated with that additional rural fund. I'm very happy to offer to get those circulated so that members are aware. I don't know whether Councillor Chowns has got any further information, but over to Councillor Chowns.
Councillor Chowns, do you have further information?
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillips, for your question. I think we all recognise the vital role that the rural areas of the county play in our rural prosperity. The eligibility criteria for the Rural Prosperity Fund are that it can be spent in communities with a population up to 10,000. Some of our market towns fulfil that. There is a very clear understanding, not least in the Rural Prosperity Fund guidance, that market towns themselves act as hubs for a wider rural area, and so an artificial delineation between market towns and the rural areas that they serve would be unhelpful. What is currently being proposed, so the Rural Prosperity Fund, we have to submit an application very shortly within the next few weeks for funding that will be spent in the 2 financial years from the 1st of April next year. There are, at a meeting that we had just yesterday with Herefordshire's Sustainable Growth Strategy Board, which is providing input on this topic, we agreed 4 headings for areas that should be funded through that, remembering that Rural Prosperity Fund and Shared Prosperity Fund are effectively central government replacement funding streams for much larger funding streams that we used to have through, for example, the European Rural Development Fund. We now get roughly a third of the level of funding that we used to get through the previous European funding streams for these types of activities. There's much valuable activity that has happened in the past, rural business diversification, for example, and we are committed to continuing to support that. And on the question of whether village halls and so forth, absolutely, it's explicit that it's not just profit-making businesses, but also community organisations that can apply for this. We face, because of the declining level of funding, in a situation in which the amount of funding available is outstripped by the number of things that need to be done with it. And we're also, while I'm on the topic, still waiting for central government to respond to the application that we sent nearly 3 months ago in response to their request for the Shared Prosperity Fund. They have asked us to spend several £100,000 of this money before the end of this financial year, but still don't appear to have even read the document that we've sent them. So it's, if anybody has connections with central government and is able to put pressure on them to release the Shared Prosperity funding, that would be very helpful for the prosperity of this county, which is currently hamstrung by the lack of responsiveness.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, we will watch very closely the support that's given to those businesses, recognise the importance of market towns as a rural hub to the hinterland. There are many successful businesses in their own. The Director of Economic Environment came to my ward in May. He met 12 people. Those 12 people employed nearly 400 people in my ward. Those are the type of businesses that we are in danger of overlooking.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Well, briefly, please. Very briefly.
Briefly. If we're paying tribute to the fantastically successful rural businesses, I would just like to take this opportunity to recognise Peter Cook's Bread, which is a rural business based in my ward, employing many people, which has just won National Baker of the Year award last night. So I completely agree with you, Councillor Phillips. There are many fantastic and indeed nationally recognised rural businesses in our county.
Good. Thank you. Good to hear that. Now, Councillor Hewitt, on the same topic? This is your third question, I think. This is your last question.
I didn't hear from the meeting yesterday what 4 categories you had decided upon, but I'd like to make a plea for the arts and culture and whether that was one of the 4 categories that you would include considering funding, please.
Councillor Harvey, you want Councillor Chance to answer for you?
She was at the meeting.
Good reason for you to answer, Councillor Chance.
For clarification, we don't get free choice on these things from government. Government sets a range of kind of headings. So government's given us, I think I'm correctly recalling, 7 possible headings for things that this can be spent on, and they're fairly widely framed. But we've got only £1.7 million over 2 years over the entire county, and we're proposing to narrow it down to 4 still quite broad headings. I can get you a written answer specifying what they are, and the application will be put forward in the next few weeks. But yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Chance.
There's definitely no exclusion of arts and culture.
Right.
Chairman.
Yes?
Could I ask for a time check, please?
Yes.
Just to focus people's minds.
Yes? 10 minutes? 2 minutes? Sorry, 2 minutes for what?
For the hour.
For the hour. 2 minutes for the hour, is it? Right. I will allow a little flexibility on this because there's been a lot of interest, obviously. I think we need to go to... I might just skip 1 or 2 of these things, I think. Sorry?
time that we
Well,
can
I'm being
spend.
flexible because...
Yeah, but how flexible? I mean, you know, 10 minutes, I mean, you're not even halfway, about
No, I
halfway through the
know,
report.
I know.
And one
I'm
of the
prepared
most
to be
important subjects is still
fairly
to
flexible
come.
on this. But what we were told at the moment, at the beginning, we had an hour for this, but I think we can be a bit more flexible. It's just that we've got other business to do as well. Sorry?
I'm at a loss. Is this the Constitution? That we have
It is
an
my
hour?
discretion as how long we go for. So leave it to me, please. And I will be very generous, I'm sure, being of a generous nature. But remember, you only have 3 questions each, and they must be questions, please, not just statements. We'll go very quickly on to the Levelling Up Fund. Right, we'll go on now to the Stronger Towns Fund.
Councillor Rowan. Number 12.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Would you agree, Deputy Leader, it's slightly disappointing that the most worthwhile projects around the city have not been mentioned? I do appreciate that they are not authority-led, but acknowledging their contribution would have been appreciated and should always be championed at every opportunity. Southside, Wales Sports, Castle Green, I was quite keen on this subject right from the beginning, but it's good to get them mentioned at every opportunity. And also the £8.5 million capital receipts from the museum, for the museum and Maylords, would we have been better off maybe using that money potentially to plug the £9.5 million hole in the accounts? It seems once again we're concentrating on maybe a colour scheme for the front room while we're ignoring the hole in the roof. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Deputy Leader?
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Yeah, I think we're all rightly proud of the breadth of projects that have been submitted under the Herefordshire Stronger Towns Fund bid, the Hereford bid. So many small community groups and fantastic community-led projects. Many more than is normally the case for Stronger Towns Fund bids elsewhere in the country. So, yeah, I agree with you. We should be recognising the fantastic work that all of those groups have done and that the board has done in bringing that bid to a successful conclusion, and I'm very happy to recognise all of those. As far as your question about whether we should be keeping that 8 million in our back pocket, we are, as best as we're able, trying to do a lot of different things, and investing in culture is an important dimension of our support for the tourist and the visitor economy, and also for celebrating all the very special collections that we have in our museum and our archives collection, which the public have not necessarily had as wide an opportunity to view as we would like. So if we don't put this 8 million in, then as matched funding for funding coming from elsewhere, this project doesn't go ahead. And we think that it's really important that, along with all the other things that we're trying to balance, that we do put the investment in to set our museum on a very firm footing to be a nationally recognised destination for people to come to Hereford and to Herefordshire and enjoy.
Thank you.
And I think Councillor Chowns might have something else to add on that. Sorry.
Well, I was going to frame it as a question, but I just wondered, Councillor Harvey, if you care to explain to Councillor Rowan the difference between capital and revenue funding, and therefore the reason why we can't spend £8 million of capital funding to plug gaps in revenue budgets due to the growth in inflation.
Thank you. Okay, he understands that. Thank you very much.
That wasn't clear from the question.
I don't think Councillor Rowan needs a teaching from me on that.
I think that will be enough there. Thank you.
So,
Any more for this
yes,
one?
Next speaker, Councillor Shaw, number 7.
Councillor Shaw, number 7, please.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that the our capital spendings this year has been significantly below budget. Could the Deputy Leader explain why this funding for the Maylords Orchard needs to come from the capital receipt reserves rather than from prudential borrowing, since we've drawn down so little prudential borrowing this year due to our capital budget not being delivered?
Right, Deputy Leader.
I'll provide Councillor Shaw with a written answer.
Thank you. Right, any more questions on this particular topic? In which case we'll smartly move to Enterprise Zone, completion of groundwork on North Magazine. Any questions on that? No. Budget setting, timetable and scrutiny review. Questions, please?
Yes, Councillor Balderson.
Councillor
Number
Balderson.
4.
Number 4, thank you.
Thank you. The heading of this section of the report is Budget Setting, Timetable and Scrutiny Review, but I can't see very much information in the body of the text on the timetable, nor when scrutiny will be able to review the proposals. A report went to Cabinet on the 28th of July this year outlining the proposed budget consultation timetable. As in previous years, there was a series of local budget consultations, focus group sessions, an online survey, social media consultation and roadshows and face-to-face events. All these budget consultations were scheduled to be completed by now. Can you please outline whether you intend to undertake all these consultations around the upcoming budget and when you will have a proposed budget available to scrutinise? Because at this stage I fear we will not be presented with a balanced budget proposal until just before full council in March.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Balderson. Yes, it's difficult, isn't it? We don't tend to get to a position where we have a balanced budget proposal until just before full council any year. And that's a function of it being very late in the budgeting process that we get any certainty from central government regarding the financial settlement. Normally, by this point and earlier in the process, we would have had indicative figures from civil servants as to what we should expect. As you can imagine, with the level of chaos that there is in Westminster and that there has been for weeks and weeks, this is an exceptional year. And I am as disappointed and concerned, as I'm sure you are, that the public consultations that would normally have been going on at this point in the process have not been able to be started. It is raising concerns for me that it will be a very compressed process when it can happen. And I am also concerned that it is starting to look like it may happen coincident with the Christmas holiday period, when people will not be paying full attention to the council's budgeting process. I don't know why. I will be, probably. But I feel that that's unsatisfactory. But it is where we are presently. I have asked officers whether it is possible for us to conduct some form of useful consultation on themes and options in the absence of us having figures, because generally the public doesn't have the bandwidth to want to engage with the detail of figures, but big handful stuff. Do we spend more on this and less on that? Do we stop this? Do we try and continue that? Those are the sorts of questions that we can ask, and I am hoping that we might be able to get something done so that we avoid consulting over the Christmas period and into the new year, because the whole process will become massively compressed if that's the case. And I don't think that that's good for transparency, public engagement or democracy.
Thank you. Any more questions on this particular topic?
No further questions,
No.
Chairman.
Update on children's services. Questions? Yes.
So, Councillor Lester, number 4.
And Councillor Ianson as well, and Councillor Swinglehurst.
Thank you, Chairman. It's encouraging to see in the report that workloads of practitioners are coming down and that there are reductions in the amount of children in our care, however small. At the council meeting on the 29th of July, I asked the leader of the council whether he could provide me with an assurance that where possible and where it is right for the child, Children's Services should do all it can to reunite families. Councillor Hitchener kindly gave me that assurance. However, I remain sceptical about this council's ability to do this, and so I must ask, has the council got the sufficient capacity to make this assurance a possibility? If not, then the council will continue to spend vast sums, unsustainable sums of money, and at the expense of those families who could and should be reunited.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Lester, for your question. It is always our hope to try and keep families together. And I was in a meeting this morning even asking our Chief Executive and officers for assurance that we are keeping in mind as we look at particular cases whether there are opportunities that we identify to do that. The work that's going on in terms of responding to the Ofsted review and the work that we're doing with our Commissioner for Children's Services is also looking at this as a specific area. I am hopeful that the answer will be in the affirmative to that question. At the moment, I believe the assurance that the leader gave you in the summer still stands. And I'll look to Councillor Toynbee whether there's anything additional that she wants to say at this point.
Councillor Toynbee, can you add anything to this?
Councillor Toynbee, number 1.
Yes, thank you. I agree that's got to be a priority, supporting families to stay together, and I'm really pleased that our new service director for safeguarding, that is one of her priorities, and she's already making progress on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Councillor Gandy, number 5.
Thank you.
This is your last question, I think, Councillor Gandy.
I know that. I can count. I want to not talk about the situation we are finding ourselves in at present. I want to take you back to the 15th of September 2020, when at that time I was still Chair of Children's Scrutiny, and the question was asked regarding peer-on-peer abuse, whether the Head of Legal Services would explain to the committee why a CSO report, a redacted CSO report, had not been provided to that committee. At that committee meeting on the 15th of September, the legal department at that time, I have to say they've all gone now, at that time promised that that information would be provided to us. It then went to an external intervention, and we are now 2 years further on, and we still do not have an answer to the question as to why that CSO report was not made available to all schools in Herefordshire back in 2017-2018. Now, I understand that things take time, but the people who were affected by peer-on-peer abuse, the people who feel let down by what happened at that time, feel that we have just basically ignored them. 2 years. The question to me is now, when will we get this report? How many more years before we get an answer to a question that was asked in September 2020?
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Gandy. I share your frustration on this one. It has been an inordinate length of time, and I can give you my assurance that it has not been off the table, off the agenda for us throughout that time. But the investigation that was needed to take place has been slow. It's been slow for a variety of reasons, but my understanding is that it is within arm's length of being delivered, and once it is delivered, then we will be able to provide scrutiny with the answer to the question that you've asked. So your patience is probably well beyond snapping point.
Absolutely.
But I am hopeful that it will not be much longer before we can provide that answer, not just to you, but to all the people out there who are concerned about this and are concerned about the underlying implications for the way that the council handles information and makes decisions on safeguarding matters.
Thank you.
And my only other point out of this is, arms are different lengths. How long is this arm?
I've got short arms.
Is it 3 months, 6 months?
It's my
before
arm's
the
length.
next local election.
Oh, definitely. Oh my goodness, I would hope.
Before Christmas?
Before Christmas? I'm looking to the Chief Executive.
This Christmas. Chief Executive. Can you help us,
Yeah, you're absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with all the comments are made about the pace of completing this particular piece of work. It is near a conclusion. It'll be with us before Christmas, if not before that.
Good. Thank you. Excellent. Any more questions on this one, or can we move on?
Councillor Councillist, number 4.
Yes, thank you. I wrote an email to Councillor Hitchener a while back when the improvement plan was set up, saying that if you've got too many boards and too many meetings and whatnot, they're going to spend so much time in committee meetings that things aren't going to get done. And I still have that concern, but I note in paragraph 36 that it says the improvement board and the Herefordshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership will meet more frequently. My question is, unless there are specific outcomes that are agreed for those meetings, meeting more frequently per se is not going to achieve very much. So my question is, how are those meetings going to be more productive? Having greater frequency is one thing, but if nothing comes out of them, you can meet as frequently as you like, but things aren't going to get achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Lester. And I'm going to, I've primed Councillor Toynbee, who's going to be responding on this one.
Councillor Toynbee.
No, she hasn't. Yes, I have huge sympathy with Councillor Lester about this. Getting that balance right, as we've said before, between letting people get on with their work and writing reports and plans. We do, obviously, a lot is down to the chairs of those boards, and it's pretty overdue that we make the Safeguarding Partnership work more effectively. As far as the Improvement Board is concerned, that was set up last year, because of the Ofsted report, there's an added focus and pace on that. So we won't go on and on meeting this frequently, but over the next 6 months or a year, we really need to have that extra focus. But I agree that we've got to make sure that the meetings are effective and we're not just sitting around talking. And of course, as I said before, the important stuff goes in between the meetings, and the meetings ideally when we scrutinise and hear about progress. But I agree we have to keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
Yes, we do. Councillors Swinglehurst, number 13.
Thank you. I've got two questions. The second one pertains to Appendix B, but it makes sense because it's the Children's Services section if we hold those together, if that's with the Chair's discretion. So my first question, the local authority has apparently anomalous numbers of families where FII, fabricated or induced illness, is a factor. In the light of the meeting yesterday with families from a common bond, can the Deputy Leader reassure me that these cases are being audited? And my second question, which pertains to Appendix B, the delivery plan. I remember a briefing on the signs of safety approach to safeguarding, but it's not referenced in the delivery plan, but it is referenced in a current advertisement for social worker where I quote, we've invested heavily in training and developing staff in our single practice approach, which is signs of safety. So can the Deputy Leader please clarify, are we still using signs of safety? And if we are, why it's not referenced within the delivery plan? Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Swinglehurst. I think as far as the fabricated and induced illness query is concerned, I believe we have been looking into how many cases have a link to this, and that is something that was raised previously, and I believe officers have already given a commitment to look into that, and my understanding is that we as an authority are not in a position where the number of cases that we have is unusual when considered against other authorities. I believe that is the position. I don't know whether Councillor Toynbee has got anything further on this, and indicating no. If there is anything that we are able to provide as a statement on this, then I'm happy to do that in writing, just to give members assurance in terms of where we sit with respect to similar authorities. If there's any more we can say, we will, but I think we're safe in at least being able to say where we sit against our peers. As far as signs of safety are concerned, I think it probably isn't in the delivery plan because it's a bit detailed in terms of an operational approach to the way that social workers are functioning. I would be expecting how we are working to be being reviewed as part of the overall consideration of the Ofsted report. So again, I'm not sure whether Councillor Toynbee has got an up-to-date view on signs of safety specifically, but if it's something that we move away from, again, I think that's something that I can give a commitment that we will let members know if that's something that we decide to replace with an alternative approach.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Toynbee, do you have anything to add?
Yes, just briefly, as has just been said, that it is a matter of how much detail we go into or not in the delivery plan. We are still using the signs of safety model, so I'll take that forward as a comment, and I'm always happy to have a meeting with Councillor Swinglehurst about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, you have a question to ask?
It's more for you as chairman and also for our monitoring officer. Just around the time now, so it is now quarter to 12. It
is my discretion.
I know it is, but it's also, there are working people that are in this room that
This
have
is
to
more
go at 1
important
o'clock.
than, you know, you have
It's
to...
more important than my work.
It is important that
3
you actually...
hours in the Constitution. That is how much I get. We've got 1 hour and a quarter left, and there is 4 items left on this, and 2 notices of motions. Don't shrug your shoulders at me, Councillor Durkin.
Please.
3 hours.
We can always go longer than that with the consent of the Council. But this is important too, I think, and everyone knows that the Council meetings, which are not that frequent, are an important part of your duties as a councillor. And I
So
will
maybe
hope
all
you
people
appreciate
that work shouldn't be a councillor then?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But there are other people, working people here, have taken time off or time in lieu, or they've taken a holiday day to come and do it. That's, yes, it's up to you. I'm sorry, let's move on, please.
So, Councillor Ianson, number 14.
And I think we have the
Thank
last,
you,
this is the last
Deputy
question on this
Leader.
topic.
Yes, can I please ask, as they were invited to yesterday's Common Bond meeting with the families, why was there no insistence that the Chief Executive, Head of Children's Services or any other officers to do with Children's Services did not attend?
What is your question?
Can I ask why they did not attend?
Thank you.
Why there wasn't an insistence that they do attend?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Anson. I think it's an assumption on your part that the officers received an invitation to the event.
Well, I think they did, because there were nameplates ready to set out to put in front of them, so they definitely received an invitation.
I think we should not be talking about officers in this particular forum. Sorry, we do not deal with that.
Chairman.
Can we move on, please?
I have 2 more speakers.
I think we'll leave this one now. I think we need to...
Chairman, this is a disgrace.
What, sorry? Yes, well, I'm saying... Yes?
Discussion on it.
So I didn't realise you had a question, Fred. You have a question?
Other members, we've gone through all sorts of things in this. It is a disgrace. Can I thank the Deputy Leader and other members who attended that meeting yesterday? And the members, all members were invited and officers were invited, and the emails, I checked on that, were sent to all those members. Now, those that attended heard something that was so distressing to many of them that it beggars belief that we can deal with it in such a trivial matter this morning. Lives have been destroyed. Lives have been destroyed by what the Children's Services have done over the years. And apart, I think, from most members who attended, realised that fact. But what was appalling was that I had from one member anger that we suggested that families were criticising officers. What do they think they should do in the circumstances when they've had their lives destroyed by lies and deceit over their children? We're going to pick up the bill for this in the future because there's an enormous amount of litigation that is going to be taking place against the council because of the way in which it's been handled. Isn't it time that we woke up and smelled the coffee?
Thank you, Councillor.
Is that a question?
Do you wish to respond to that, Councillor?
Well, I'm awake and the coffee is at the back of the room. However, I have been given assurance that, and I checked before I attended the meeting, I have been given assurance that officers did not receive invitations to that particular meeting. Councillor James.
Well, I can't adjudicate on that. That is a matter for record, I think.
Chairman, Councillor Howells is the last speaker, number 16.
Councillor Howells.
Thank you. I did put my hand up right at the beginning, Chair, and I'm mindful of the people saying about time. But this is one of the most important subjects on which we should be asking questions. And I just want to follow on from a question about the CSO report. Linked to that, we've been having questions from the public, literally since that time, answering questions about the process we adopt when the decision is made in a peer-and-peer abuse case that it's not a police prosecution. What is the process we follow to ensure that children are being safeguarded in line with the council's responsibility to safeguard, not the schools? And we still haven't answered that question satisfactorily to the public. We may think we have, but they keep asking it, so clearly we haven't. In the spirit of our renewed commitment to engage and listen to what the public say, I think it's important we get a reassurance from Cabinet that we will revisit that question and make sure we work with the public who are asking questions with that concern, that we will work with them until we give them a satisfactory answer of the process that we're following to ensure we are meeting our safeguarding obligations and our Human Rights Act obligations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Leader, do you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Howells. Thank you for that question. I think officers have tried really hard to respond to public questions on this matter in a way which recognises the imponderables and the uncertainties of the specific nature of cases as yet unknown, whilst also trying to describe in general terms what the approach is. And you're right, that has not satisfied members of the public who have been asking those questions repeatedly. I'm prepared that we give it another go, but I also recognise that it may be that we just never quite satisfy the public because we cannot be specific enough about processes which have inevitably to be tailored to the circumstances of individual cases as they arise. And I think it's that gap between the generality of what would be done and different legislation that needs to be considered in responding to a peer-on-peer abuse case in general, and the specifics of any particular case. And I think that area of specificity is what's causing the problem. So I will give it another go. I will commit to us giving it another go. But I also understand that we may fail again to entirely satisfy those asking that question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I just welcome that commitment. I'm sure the public will too. It is important that we do address it and do our best to satisfy them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have any more questions on this particular topic?
No, Chairman.
Exercised that quite well, I think. Thank you. Tour community, thank you events. Nope. Warm spaces. Nope. Here for Herefordshire activities and food programme. Nope. Use of council's earmarked reserves. Yes, we had Councillor Matthews and Councillor Johnson. Councillor Lester, sorry.
So, Councillor Lester, number 4.
Thank you. This will have used up my 3 questions, so thank you. On the item with regard to the Eastern River, west is best, east is off-piste, but never mind. Can I ask, the feasibility options phase, when will that be completed? Thank you.
Can I pass that one to Councillor Harrington?
Councillor Harrington. Number 2. Number 2, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lester. So the analysis and gap analysis and early feasibility has been completed. We have that back now. We'll be sharing it with the public shortly, and we'll be commissioning. And what I think we may have commissioned the second stage, which is the strategic outline business case, and I'll give you details of that and all members ASAP.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Number 20. Councillor Matthews, number 20.
Yes, it's on the same item. The use of council reserves and the further development of the Eastern Bridge, 1 million for the reasons that Councillor Lester just said. I think all business people and the majority of people in this county will tell you, unless we improve our infrastructure in the form of that and other things like the Bridge Solids Road, we'll never provide the secure, well-paid jobs this county so desperately needed. So could I ask, please, what is the reason? It's over 3 years since this project was initially approved. Can the Cabinet member or you, Deputy Leader, please tell us what is the reason for the delay for this project? Is it a matter of lack of support from the administration or lack of funding?
Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Just because you don't see work going on doesn't mean it isn't happening, and I'll pass you over to Councillor Harrington, who's got oodles of the detail.
Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Matthews. The decision wasn't made 3 years ago, Councillor Matthews, unfortunately. We came in and we inherited policy, and the policy at the time of the administration, the previous administration, was that we were pursuing a western bypass. So we had to go through a process, as you well know, to stop the progression of the previous plans for a western bypass and to implement plans for an eastern access, eastern link and crossing and link road. So until we made those decisions last year and until we made the Cabinet direction last year in June, we didn't have the policy or the financial financial resource to do that. Since then, we have worked at trying to get that done as quickly as possible. As you know, it takes a long time. We're trying to find ways of truncating that. We are not prepared to accept some suggestions that this will take, 8, 9, 10 years. As we don't want to be in a situation as, without being unkind, the previous administration was, which took 12 years to neither be able to submit a business case on the South Wide Transport Package or the Hereford Transport Package. So we are doing everything we can as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible. That £1 million is there as a reserve. We haven't needed, and I don't anticipate us needing to use that any time for the second piece of work that we're doing. So we are trying to progress as quickly as possible. We're trying to look at all sorts of options in relation to funding, because we want to make sure that we satisfy the environmental and ecology and business case as quickly as possible. If we have to find funding in another way, because one of the major issues you have is that if you apply for government funding in the traditional way, it adds a tremendous amount of extrapolation and complication. So we are working as quickly as we can, and we appreciate your continued support. We know full well that you have championed this, as well as Councillor Kenyon and many other members and members of the business community, and including our MP, Jessie Norman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor. And now, any more questions on this?
Yes, Chairman. Next speaker is Councillor Johnson, number 7. Oh, not? No? Okay, Councillor Wilding, number 17.
Councillor Wilding.
Thank you, Chair. This is about the 20 mile per hour zones. So in terms of value for money, I think that the introduction of those is going to be especially welcome, especially outside schools, and it will improve safety and save us all money. So have you got any examples where this has been done successfully by other administrations or other councils in other places? And can you give any time scales? Because I know that this issue will be of great interest in my wards, probably all of our wards, where speeding is top of the complaints list. And my only concern is that will drivers actually take any notice of 20 mile per hour limits? So can we learn anything from other boroughs about how to enforce those limits? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wilding, for your question. I know we're really pleased to be able to commit this funding to 20 mile an hour speed limit zones. It won't be sufficient to enable every community in the county to be able to opt to have one. So the likelihood is that it will be, you know, on a first come first served basis, and that we'll make it stretch as far as we can. I know that Councillor Harrington attended a national conference only yesterday on this very subject, so he's absolutely up to the minute on this. So I'll hand over to him for hot off the press news.
Councillor Harrington, update?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Deputy Leader. Thank you, Councillor Wilding. It will be first come, first served, but we will keep putting money in, so don't panic, parishes. You know, this is something that's important. We want to get the template right, and we want to make sure that whoever would like to apply for this, and we would normally expect the support of the ward councillor and the parish council, and we will then happily consider this. So this is a lot of this work has come off the back of a national campaign many years ago, 20 is Plenty. The campaigners have been very practical, very down to earth, provided a huge amount of data which has shown the reduction in accidents by up to 25%, according to the data I was looking at yesterday, the reduction in pollution, the energy efficiencies in vehicles of people who are driving, the improvements to the surrounding area, the improvements in access and allowing children to feel safer to walk and cycle to school. It seems to be across all, and I think this has always been the case, across all political boundaries, absolutely something that's desirable. The two places that have achieved it or are actively following it, rolling it out at the moment are Wales and also Oxfordshire County Council. The Welsh have committed £33 million to doing it for the entire country. They're trying to do this over 3 years. They have put forward an advanced tranche, which they did as a sort of trial. They did have some difficulties with that initially because they gave 1,000 tickets on the first morning. And then they adjusted their approach to offer those people a 15-minute chat with a policeman and a fire service member to explain the dangers of speeding. And so that part of the education is very, very important. The critical question always is, can we get speed reductions without what the police always say to us, which is physical interventions? The police also tend to say to us, and I'm very pleased that the Welsh police have a different approach, that they've come through a journey, and I'm sure our police will come through that same journey, that essentially that a road governs its own speed limit. So police tend to say that if the road is, you know, feels like it's a 50, it's a 50. If a road feels like it's a 60, it's a 60. In other words, the way it's built, the sight lines. That's not good enough for our communities, especially if our communities are built up and they expect to enjoy and have amenity that is, you know, acceptable. I mean, we are making spaces for living, not for commuting. We understand the need to commute, and actually the reduction in speed limit has shown to improve congestion and to actually increase that time. So Wales have rolled out the first tranche. They're rolling out the remainder. Oxfordshire has committed £8 million to doing the same thing. We are looking to pull together as quickly as we can the perfect template. We don't want to waste money, so we are very kindly, the Welsh Government and Gwent Police are going to come to us with the fire service and speak to us about how we can learn from their template and from their experiences. And, you know, it is something that's completely, as I said, apolitical across all boundaries, something that we think is highly desirable, something that has been proven to work. And we will take the approach that Oxfordshire took, which is roll up if you want to do it in your community, come and let us know, and we will start registering you.
Thank you, Councillor. Interesting. Now, do we have any more on that?
Next speaker is Councillor Stark, number 23.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to the use of reserves to reduce the backlog of traffic regulation orders. I do welcome it. 0.66 million is probably not enough. And I also note that we brought the traffic management team back into the council so that we can actually deal with that directly. What I would ask the Deputy Leader or Councillor Harrington is, can we use the fact that we brought the traffic management team back into the council to review the individual costs of each traffic regulation order, which runs without materials or labour at about 8 to 10,000 per TRO. I've had residents often question me, why does it have to be so much? And I do think this is an opportunity to actually review that to see if we can reduce that cost so that the money can go further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Stark, for your question. The short answer is yes.
Yes.
Does Councillor Harrington want to give a longer answer than that?
Councillor Harrington, a short, long answer.
Okay. The short, long answer is, Councillor Stark, I know from your background, I'm not talking about your heritage, but your experience in the tax or HMRC offices, that you are very careful and also very keen to get value for money. What we intend to do is to do this work, if we can, as what they call MBS, map-based scheduling. So in other words, we will review the outstanding. No disrespect to our contractors, Balfour Beatty, but basically any time anyone asked for a TRO to be considered, they pretty much stuck it on a list. They didn't consider it, they just stuck it on a list, and it was added to this list, which became very, very long. We also then tended to subcontract the work to ADL in Bristol. That's our subcontractor that does the actual on the ground work. One of the advantages of bringing it back in-house is that we will be training up, and we have capacity to increase more members. We have unfortunately lost some. We've gone to work on the Welsh 20 miles an hour project, but we are building that team up, and in the meantime we'll continue to use ADL. But what we want to do is review the whole 120 or 30, whatever's on the list, remove any that are, quite frankly, not possible. We need to explain to the parishes why that is the case. And then the ones that are left, we will try and take those through as tranches. So we did that similarly, if you remember, a few years ago, when we had to rectify orders that were made incorrectly, which came to our attention from about 20 or 30 years, or 20 odd years ago. So we took a whole bunch through at one cost, rather than, as you say, 10,000 per cost. I agree that's expensive. It's the kind of market value if you're using a subcontractor. In terms of our own officers, you know, for £30,000 or whatever the value is, they might get 10 through, so it's much better value. But yes, all of those are being considered, and I think that in reality, I think that money is enough to clear the backlog if we use the map-based scheduling approach. But I'll keep you informed.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Councillor Stone, number 13.
Thank you.
Much, Chairman. My question on lower speed limits is almost identical to the one just asked by Councillor Stark, but I always believe in cross-party working. But I will take up the particular issue in more detail by speaking to Councillor Harrington outside this meeting, rather than taking up any more time this morning. But we do need to clear this backlog of TROs, and because it very much affects our local wards.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, you're going to go on? Okay, that's it. Thank you. Councillor Rowan, I believe. Is it Councillor Rowan?
I've got Councillor Tillett next.
Oh, Councillor Tillett next. Then take him, please, and then Councillor Rowan.
Number 23.
Thank you, Chair. It is appropriate to let me go next, since we're all singing from the same hymn sheet on the same subject. With regard to the TROs, I just want to ask a very specific question. I certainly have an outstanding one in my ward that affects a very busy residential street, a very difficult bend in that street, and in particular its approach to a large primary school. It's been outstanding now for over a year, so my question quite simply is, how long are we talking now in terms of clearing this backlog? Thank you.
Councillor, do you want Councillor Harrington might be the most appropriate answer, or do you, Councillor Deputy Leader, do you want to answer it yourself, or let Councillor Harrington do it?
Shall I answer it? Because Councillor Harvey's got a bullish face on, so it might be better if I answer this one.
I think Councillor Harrington, you should go.
Councillor Tillett, that's a fair question. Should we have a specific discussion about the one you've raised? Probably more appropriate to do that outside of this meeting.
Yes.
In regards to the circumstances, all our TROs are ranked in order and priority, including consideration of the factors that you have made. I believe with the money that we've got, I believe that we will clear this back. I sincerely hope that we will go some way to clearing this backlog by the middle of next year.
Thank you. Positive. Next one, is it Councillor Rowan?
So it is actually Councillor Phillips, number 6.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It was really, in answer to Councillor Wilding's question, I was surprised there was no reference to the Pembridge pilot project of 20 miles an hour. This was installed in February, the signs were changed, and nothing's been done since. Now, you know, if you're committed to a project and you bring it in February, and I know that we were going to phase it in, you do need to put those rundles and different surfaces on the roads with the 20 miles on to complete it. Then you can properly evaluate it. And that hasn't been done. Now, we've talked about it before the start of the meeting, so the question is, can you confirm that you're going to complete it, hopefully before Christmas, but certainly in the financial year?
I think Councillor Harrington, straight to you, I think, this one, please.
Me? Am I on? Yes. So, Councillor Phillips, as you well know, you were treated as a special case,
Absolutely.
as ever. We hadn't started the formal work, but we did decide, before we agreed to this work, that Pembridge was a perfect example, and it has been, I think, successful so far. I have asked why we haven't had the roundels down. I believe that is supply issues from our subcontractors. I'll give you an assurance that it'll be done before the end of the financial year.
Thank you. Councillor?
So, Councillor James, number 15.
Thank you, Chairman. This bringing back the department in-house, I think, is vitally important. Recently, there was a report in the Hereford Times about the death of 2 walkers crossing the Kington bypass. Now, I don't blame the Chief Executive for this, but it quotes, the coroner was very damning about the road there. And this is why having people in this particular area of the council who have no real knowledge of what goes on and what has happened in the past is appalling. It actually says in that report that they weren't going to reduce it to 40 as opposed to 50 because there's no history of previous deaths on that stretch of road. There is considerable history of that. There was one walker killed shortly before that, and indeed, sadly, my father was killed on that particular road, as Councillor Phillips can vouch for. But to have that in the paper when all local people know full well that there have been serious accidents and deaths on that particular spot shows how out of touch the Highways Department is with what's going on and has gone on in the county.
Do you have a question to add to that?
No.
This is a question time, please.
Next speaker is Councillor Matthews, number 20.
Thank you, Chairman. I see that the a review of the countrywide school travel plan to include provision of direct assistance to schools, etc., etc. Could I ask Councillor Arrington, or through you, Deputy Leader, they're now sending pupils from Kingsacre Road to Webley because White Cross is totally full and other schools just by, and yet the parents going from Crednill to Webley are paying £190 per pupil to transport their children there. It's high time that this matter was urgently addressed, and could Councillor Arrington look at that and promise me that he will do it treat it as something urgent? Thank you.
Councillor Harvey, would you like to just go straight to Councillor Harrington, or do you want to answer it yourself?
Councillor Harrington, please.
Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews, and I know you've raised this with me before, and I will, as I said, I will look at that. There are 2 issues here, though. I mean, the school travel planning and the choice that parents have to send their children through the academisation to any school that they wish are 2 related but slightly different issues. If people, want to send their child quite some considerable distance from where they live, unfortunately that does cause the kind of complications you're talking about. But it is part of the planning, as part of understanding how our buses are working in relation to giving schools the best advice on how to make those journeys as efficient as possible. The majority of this money will be on focusing on providing all of our schools with the capacity. We're employing a new dedicated officer to do this work. The history of school travel plans is that we used to get government funding, which was withdrawn in 2009, which meant that most schools' travel plans have lapsed. It's essential that schools have the support from someone, and it'll be the authority in this case, to make sure that they can plan so that they understand what the best bike routes are, they understand how children might find it safer to walk to school, and understand the issues that you've raised in relation to public transport. And I shall come back to you on that.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Councillor Roan, number 12.
Councillor Roan.
Thank you, Chair. Engineering, education and enforcement. These are all the normal ways to deal with travel issues and vehicle movement on the roads. We do now have another one. It's technology, self-reporting black boxes. These are all GPS based. National legislation is going to be required, and it's coming to a new car on your driveway soon. They're cheaper, friendlier, and they're going to save a huge amount of money in having to have these aforementioned features. But my question is, could we retrain some of our project managers to do this TRO work? I'm led to believe that they are kicking their heels a lot with a lack of projects to manage.
Deputy Leader.
Oh dear, I think I might be putting a bull face on again. Thank you. It's a Hereford bull anyway. Thank you for your question, Councillor Roan. It is not my understanding that our project managers are at a loose end. I'm sure they've got an awful lot to do. As far as resourcing the work that needs to be done in order to accelerate the delivery of these TROs, I'm sure the approach that is worked up with Councillor Harrington will be looking at the most speedy and efficient way of doing this.
Thank you.
Last speaker, Councillor Kenyon, just at the back of the room. Thank you.
But not least, yeah?
No, not least.
Thank you. Just first, I've got this one question on each of the subjects on this, if that's right. First off, if I may, directed at Councillor Harrington through the Deputy Leader. It's just to do with the Eastern City Bridge. Now a feasibility study's been done, eventually. I understand, and I've been very frustrated, as I suppose Councillor Harrington has himself, or Arrington, as Councillor Matthews calls him. Now you've got this feasibility study done, can we sort out a plan and can we get on with it? That's the assurance I'm seeking there. So that's my question, seeking assurances. And my second thing is, if you bear with me, Chairman, is to do with the 20 miles an hour. Yes, in the right place, 20 miles an hour works really well, but let's not get drawn into this 20 miles an hour. Some parishes just want 40 miles an hour. Around Brainton, the Brainton Loop, that's 60 miles an hour. You come off a 30 into a 40 into these back roads. I drove through Cannon Pyon the other day. That's 30 miles an hour right the way through. I was overtaken in that stretch because it's long and spread out. So we need to look at all these things on an individual basis and do the right thing. Let's not get stuck with 20 miles an hour. And just finally, in the city, you've got the main routes into the city. I mean, reducing those to 20 miles an hour is just going to hopefully make it safer. I would say concentrate on the built-up areas. Leave the main roads alone, because we know which way their main roads are.
Thank you. Is that your question?
Yeah, just my final question is... sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I think you have a question there already. Shall we leave it at that? Councillor Harrington.
Okay.
Well, can I just set the 20 mile an hour one to one side, please, and allow Councillor Harrington to concentrate on the bridge question? The 20 mile an hour, we've already made clear, is going to be at the behest and request of the parishes. So it will not be imposed. It will be communities asking for this. So I think you're worrying unnecessarily, Councillor Kenyon, and I'll pass to Councillor Harrington on the can we just get on with it question.
Right, Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Chair, Deputy Leader, and thank you, Councillor Kenyon. We're very much trying to get on with it, and as you said, we've done a very good first piece of work. We are doing the strategic outline business case next. But unfortunately, there are parameters that we have to, there are, regulations, protocols we have to follow. What we're trying to do is truncate that as much as possible, as I said, by getting work done in parallel and by also considering other options rather than necessarily wishing to bid from the government in traditional ways, which is always extended the process inordinately. So we are desperately keen not to keep paying people to tell us about things. We are desperately keen to do things as quickly as possible, and I will liaise with them on that.
Thank you. I think we only have 2 left. If we'll do those very briefly, I hope. Update in Herefordshire households opening up their homes to Ukrainian refugees. Have you any questions on that? We have one.
Councillor Ianson, number 14.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Leader. It's fantastic how families have taken Ukrainians into their homes, and the public have been tremendous with it. But there has been nationally, because initially they were for 6 months, and now it's obviously because the war is carrying on, it's much longer. There have been times when these situations have broken down, and I was just asking whether in Herefordshire have we come across any of these situations, or are all those who are placed in families all right and everything going smoothly? Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
I haven't got a detailed yes or no answer for you on that, Councillor Ianson. I will ask officers and we can provide a written response. What I would like to do is take a moment to pay tribute to the very many families who have opened their doors to Ukrainian refugees. I think the response from Herefordshire has been absolutely fantastic. And it continues. It continues as this terrible war continues. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who is supporting those families, who's providing them with accommodation. I'd also like to pay tribute to our officer team who have been amazing in working with those families and with civil servants and government to help to make this happen.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else?
Yes, next speaker, Councillor Marsh, number 9.
Councillor Marsh.
I'm very glad that we do get some, as a local authority, to help with the costs of Ukrainian families. I wondered, I'm quite sure this will be a written answer, but whether we have some idea of whether we nearly spent all of it or whether there's still scope for more things from voluntary and community groups. Yes, it just would be helpful to have some idea how that process is going of using that spend wisely.
Councillor Deputy Leader.
I will provide a written answer on that. Obviously, we are eking the money out, and it's got a long way to go. If there is more that can be done by working through our fantastic Talk Community Network and with community groups and with individuals who are interested in supporting refugees, then hopefully that can be included in the update, and I'll provide that as a briefing note to councillors.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And finally, cost of living crisis. Do you have any questions on this? Councillor Stark.
Councillor Stark, number 23.
On the household grant, I raised the question about a holistic approach to the way we support families. My question is around the commission that has been set up to actually look at the cost of living crisis. Families don't look at their position in segments. I know we do get the funding for specific activities such as perhaps helping with energy, helping with food and other things, but I would like the Cost of Living Commission to look at this issue holistically. So my question is, whoever is actually going to be chairing that, could someone actually put that question to them to make sure that when we are considering support for families, we look at it from a family point of view, which is that they are looking at their budgets as a whole and not individually. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Stark. And, as best as we are able, I would like to give a commitment to you that, yes, we will look holistically, you're quite right. The way in which we get money passed out to us in dribs and drabs is not that way, but we will do our best locally to take that joined up and in the round view of things.
Thank you. That concludes the Leader's report. Thank you, Deputy Leader. And we come now. Do we need to have a little break, or everyone prepared to go on, or do you want to have a small break? General consensus to continue? Thank you. Item 9, motions on notice, pages 71 to 84. Before we commence the debate on the motions, I ask members to be succinct with their comments and to avoid repeating those points already made, so that those members who wish to speak have every opportunity to do so. The report containing the motions to be considered at this meeting is at page 71 of the agenda pack. Council has 2 motions to consider. I will identify a proposer and a seconder to move the motion, and a debate will be undertaken by members on the motion and any amendments received. I will then call a vote on any amendments and the final recommendation. Motion 1, cost of living crisis and energy efficiency. Councillor Chance, please introduce your motion, and you have 5 minutes for that.
Thank you. Colleagues, I don't think you really need me to remind us all of the scale of the cost of living crisis we're facing. Inflation at over 10%, food inflation at 14.5%. A survey from the UK Financial Conduct Authority just released this morning showing that £8 million were already struggling to pay their bills in the spring of this year. We can imagine how that has increased now. And yet there are really crucial areas of policy, especially around energy efficiency, that could play a significant role in helping to address the immediate cost of living crisis as well as the climate crisis. But these are sadly being woefully neglected by the current government, and they have been woefully neglected by successive Conservative governments for the past 12 years. Essentially, our housing, our buildings in this country are simply not good enough, and the government is not doing enough to improve this. So this motion invites the Council to express its collective concern about this issue and its support for 4 specific measures that would address this. The first is immediate, further direct financial support to help people to manage the cost of living crisis, with most support provided to low-income households. It is clear that central government support provided so far is just not enough, especially not for those on low incomes. We saw universal credit cut just when people are facing a cost of living crisis. The energy support that the, I'm afraid, shambolic Truss government announced is untargeted. The government is refusing to confirm that they'll uprate benefits in line with inflation. They've committed to that for pensioners, but not for families with children. And the news is full of heartbreaking stories of families that are struggling. We know child poverty is widespread and growing, and more direct and targeted support is clearly needed. There is space in other arenas for debate about exactly what that should be. I'm not seeking to have a specific debate about that at the moment, but I am hoping that we can reach collective agreement on this as a point of principle. Low-income households need more support immediately. And beyond that, point 2, we need a fully funded nationwide action plan to insulate all homes and businesses as quickly as possible to improve energy efficiency and to reduce bills. I personally find it absolutely extraordinary and really frankly shocking that so little attention has been paid by government to energy efficiency when it is such an obvious course of action. UK homes lose heat much more quickly than those of our European neighbours. We are way behind where we need to be with insulation. The Climate Change Committee, the government's independent advisor, said in its latest report that buildings are the UK's second largest source of emissions, and there has been no sustained reduction in emissions from buildings in the last decade, reflecting low levels of annual home energy efficiency improvements. 10 years ago, the pace of improvements was something like 2.3 million insulation measures in a year at the tail end of the energy efficiency schemes started by previous governments. And equivalent schemes only installed 93,500 measures last year. That is shocking. It is way, way, way insufficient. So as the Climate Change Committee said, the current pace of change is too slow, and the government has a critical role to play, not just in putting in place the funding required to insulate buildings, to ensure that they are fit for the future, fit for the long term, but also simply in raising public awareness of this. And it's been equally shocking to see that the government has very recently refused even to fund a national awareness programme to help households and businesses understand the measures they can take to reduce energy use at a time of energy efficiency crisis. So that's the second plank of this motion. The third is a commitment to keep fossil fuels in the ground and instead invest in developing the renewable energy technologies and businesses that are essential for our future energy security. A recent letter from the chairs of the CCC and the National Infrastructure Commission pointed out that renewables are now 9 times cheaper than gas. There is absolutely no place for new fossil fuel development in the UK. No fracking, no new North Sea oil and gas. And I'd like to invite Conservative colleagues to take this opportunity to confirm their opposition to fracking and any other form of fossil fuel development. Finally, we need the immediate introduction of significantly improved energy efficiency standards for new buildings. It is shocking that we are still building houses that leak heat. The Code for Sustainable Homes was scrapped by this government in 2015. We are nowhere close to achieving the type of housing we need. I've got one more sentence. So we need a government policy framework to immediately improve energy efficiency. We need government leadership in this area, and I warmly invite colleagues to support this motion to call on our local MPs and our national government to put these measures in place. Thank you.
Thank you. A little bit over, but too bad. Now, who do you have as your seconder? Councillor Crockett.
It was Councillor Crockett, but she's had an emergency, so Councillor Yolandi Watson will be seconding this motion.
Right. Councillor Watson, do you want to speak now or later? Later. Okay, thank you. So, we now come to the debate. Members are entitled to speak once during the debate for 3 minutes only. The Vice Chairperson will be keeping a list of members who wish to speak during the debate, and please can members indicate to the Vice Chairperson if they intend to speak. Councillor Rowan, I think you were first on the blocks, and then Councillor Wilding.
Chairman, I've already got some people on the list.
Sorry?
I've already got some councillors
You
on
have?
the list.
Oh, well done.
Yep. So,
good for you.
Councillor Gandhi, number 5.
Councillor Gandhi's had 3 questions already.
This is a separate agenda.
Oh, we are beyond that. Right. We'll allow you, sorry.
No.
Forgive me. I was getting overexcited. Councillor Gandhi.
I think you need to go and lie down in a dark room. Thank you, Leader. Chairman.
Chairman.
It is important to understand what is already in place before asking for something. It would be helpful if the motion were a bit more detailed in what exactly it is asking of the government. It says that there needs to be further financial support. How much is that? The September statement outlines several schemes to support households, businesses, charities and the voluntary and public sector to meet the short-term economic shock of energy price rises. The EPG and the EBSS will save the average household at least £1,400 compared with the October 2022 price cap. How much more is further? £100, £1,000, £10,000? It's my understanding that the government will be reviewing the various schemes in April, and feedback, constructive feedback from local government would help them to assess the impact of the scheme at that point. It is a bit early to be making that judgment now. As you will all know, the price of gas is a global commodity, and therefore, in addition to short-term measures, the government has put in place plans to negotiate longer-term arrangements with suppliers and to reform the energy market structure so it better reflects the UK's homegrown, cheaper and low-carbon energy sources. However, I do think that as a rural authority, it might have been appropriate to raise with the government the plight of off-gas grid households and households who are struggling with the rising cost of alternative heating sources. For example, the cost of biomass has almost doubled, and this is penalising households who are trying to go carbon neutral and get off gas and oil, but they are not factored into the EPG scheme in the same way that a gas customer is. There is literally, as with oil, no price control at all. Unfortunately, the specific challenges of off-gas grid rural areas like swathes of Herefordshire are not the subject of this notice of motion, which appears to me to be purely political.
Thank you, Councillor. Who's the next one?
Next speaker is Councillor Norman, number 9.
Thank you. Councillor Norman.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for this, for the motion, which I agree with very strongly. I think this is really important that we raise these issues and put as much pressure as we can on the government. I particularly want to talk about the aspect of improving the quality of our homes, making them far more energy efficiency, improving insulation and so on, which, as we've heard, is massively overdue. This council, 10 years ago, passed a motion, almost unanimously, I think there were 4 abstentions, which called on the government to do exactly that, and committed as a council to do what they were able to do to that end. What's changed? Very little. Standards have improved very slightly, but not nearly sufficiently. At that time, our focus was on the benefit to the environment, but also on the huge way that it would help to reduce bills and help people who are struggling with costs of energy. And of course, as we know, that is massively more important and concerning because of recent events. So I really welcome this. It's a further step towards gaining that. It seems to me there are absolutely no reasons, no possible reasons for not doing that, for not having the highest efficiency in our homes for all those reasons. So I'm very, very keen to support this and hope that everyone else will be doing that too. It's really essential we move on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one.
Next speaker is Councillor Durkin, number 5.
Councillor Durkin.
Thank you, Chairman. The energy efficiency of our housing stock is crucial. We can all agree on that. But since 2010, the percentage of UK housing stock deemed to be energy efficient, that is, with an energy performance certificate of A to C, has increased from 10% to 45%. But there's much more to be done. The government's 2021 strategy makes this clear. I'm not sure what Herefordshire Council is going to add to government thinking on this that the Commission on Climate Change hasn't already done. In the government's heat and building strategy, there are multiple policies to improve the thermal efficiency of the UK's housing stock. The broad nature of the notice on motion does not indicate in what way specifically the current policy is deficient. There is the danger of asking for something that is already there, which just makes it look as if we're not paying attention. Notice of the motion refers to a fully funded nationwide action plan to insulate all homes and businesses, etc. And I agree that it would be great, really great, if the government could pay for all homes and businesses to be insulated. The older housing stock like Chatsworth, Buckingham Palace and the stately homes of England would certainly benefit from such investment. If the public purse is so stuffed with money that the owners can sit back then, great. Not sure that is a little too generous though, and that is probably why the government has not committed to such a level of expenditure. There is indeed targeted support to the most vulnerable for the houses with the poor EPC, below E if memory serves, in combination with a household income of below £30,000. More needs to be done, and the government is considering legislative and regulatory tightening around the EPC for rented properties and for houses at the point of sale, with the onus on the house owner to improve the thermal efficiency of their property. However, everything isn't up to the government. There are things that the local authority might consider. For example, the council can use the powers that it has to support retrofitting of existing housing stock, as with Milton Keynes Council, who are using a carbon offsetting agreement with house builders to retrofit off-site. It was a suggestion brought up at the Climate Ecological Emergency Task finished group. But so far, it has not been taken forward by this administration. I can't help feeling that we need to be doing all we can in order to have credibility, and not just asking the government for a blank cheque. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, who's next?
Next speaker is Councillor Rowan, number 12.
Councillor Rowan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got an awful lot of belief in some of what is sought with this notice of motion, especially point 4, and any colleagues here who sit on the planning committee with me will know that I've spoken about this a couple of times. All new buildings should have the highest possible energy efficiency standards, and I'm a great believer that all social housing should be built to a passive house standard. The extra cost in building those properties would have an effect on the land price, so an overall cost would remain the same. We need it on social housing projects, social housing homes, pure and simply because I've always used to use the terminology, it future-proofs against the cost of utilities, but I'm afraid we're living in the future now, so it needs to be done now. I cannot support this notice of motion, though, as point 3 suggests fossil fuels should be left in the ground. Fossil fuels, oil and coal. Anyone driving here in their non-100% battery car should also vote against this, or ask for this to be removed, or park your car up for good. Should we also be looking at not digging out the ground lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite? We could go on. So I'm afraid I will not be supporting this today.
Thank you, Councillor. Next.
It's next speaker, just checking, was it Councillor Matthews? Did you have your hand up earlier? Nope. No, that's all right. Councillor Swinglehurst, number 13.
Yeah, so again, it's the third part of the notice of motion that I speak to, and I am in agreement that it's generally a virtuous thing to commit to keep fossil fuels in the ground and to invest instead in developing the renewable energy technologies. And I am very happy to restate my opposition to fracking in the Wye Valley AONB. It was a notice of motion I seconded a few years back, and I stand by it wholeheartedly. It was supported by the full council, and it would be my expectation it would still be supported. However, there is a false dichotomy in the premise of the recommendation that we cannot overnight go to renewables, although there has been progress and there will be more progress to come, but there is a period of transition that takes us to 2050. It is therefore not possible to, quote, keep fossil fuels in the ground. We still need them to power the nation. The UK government has committed to 2050 net zero. We live in extraordinary times. The extraction from the North Sea oil and gas fields cannot be seen in isolation from the war in Ukraine and the impact on the energy security of the EU. Although the UK is fortunate in not being reliant on Russian oil and gas supplies, our friends and neighbours in the EU are far more vulnerable to the weaponising of energy supplies. 40% of the EU's supply of gas is from Russia, and in Germany's case it's 65%. I attended a panel at the Conservative Party conference entitled Getting Off Putin's Gas. One of the speakers was a Ukrainian MP, Alexei Goncharenko, and I will quote him directly. Russian gas is full of Ukrainian blood, but still, every day, Russia just recently received 1 billion euros from EU. Every day, 1 billion euros. Ukraine continues to pump Russian gas during the war. While Russians are destroying our cities, we are at the same moment the reliable partner not to freeze Europe. We continue to pump Russian gas because we want to be reliable, but also we ask, make steps today so that next winter we don't have to do this again. It was a plea to the EU to get off Putin's gas. The UK has one of the best LNG infrastructures in the world, and this will go some way to easing supply-side issues. But increasing supply from Qatar is not as green as increasing supply nearer to home. The EU are transitioning to renewables, but in the short term, we have to consider whether it behoves us all to do all we can to substitute cleaner and less blood-stained supplies to reduce the EU reliance on Russian energy and thereby weaken the Kremlin's ability to buy bullets and wage war. We must get off fossil fuels, but in the short term, Europe needs to get off Putin's gas.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And next
speaker is Councillor James, number 15.
Thank you, Chairman.
James.
sorry, thank you, Chairman. I'm on balance, will support this particular issue, although, you know, virtue signalling I worry about it at council meetings. We've got to the point where you know, we're going to have a motion shortly, you know, that this council believes in goodness. And we'll debate it. But, you know, I wholeheartedly support this particular motion. But I do, could I advise that in addressing the correspondence to the Prime Minister, you address it to the current holder or who it may be concerned.
Thank you, Councillor. Next one.
No further speakers, Chairman? Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Wilding.
Councillor Stone.
Number 17.
And Councillor Johnson as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I thank Councillor Chowns for bringing this motion. The energy crisis, the cost of living crisis and the climate emergency are all interrelated, and energy efficiency goes some way to addressing them all. My question is, does she believe that the government basically like to talk the talk but then drag their feet and don't actually walk the walk when it comes to all these things? We need to keep the pressure up on the government to actually do things that they've said they'll already do, and I think this motion helps us do that. As regards fracking and other fossil fuels, we just can't allow current problems to hide the coming climate emergency. We just have to get on with it. We've been warned, you know, for 20, 30, 40 years that it's coming. We're now told we've got, you know, 3 years ago we were told we've got 10. Now we've got 7. So when are we actually going to start doing the things that the government said they would do? And they proudly trot it out when it comes to a COP or some other international meeting, but then they just cancel things like, you know, projects to help people do it. So I warmly welcome this motion. And it's not virtue signalling. This is about protecting future generations. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, next one
is Councillor Stone, number 13.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much, Chairman. There are some very good things in this motion, but I find it difficult to support it as a whole, having listened to Councillors Gandy and Swinglehurst. But I do want to respond to Councillor Chowns on the fracking issue. I remain strongly opposed to fracking, and if there was an application in my ward and local residents were against it, I would certainly support local residents. Lots of good things come from America, but I don't think that includes fracking. The huge use of water, the minor earthquakes that we've experienced, and the fact that we're a much smaller country geographically than America, quite apart from the fact that local consultation, we have these buzzwords so often, local consultation, but I have a feeling not a great deal of notice will be taken with the various firms putting all their money in and offering various incentives. So no, I don't want fracking here. There are some things I support in this motion, but on the whole, I find it difficult to support it overall. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, who is next?
Is Councillor Johnson, number 7.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I will not support the motion. The idea that we can leave fossil fuels in the grounds really is just daydreaming. Last year, renewables contributed 13% of our national electricity requirement. 13%. Does anybody seriously believe that we will get to anywhere near like the present targets for net zero? Quite apart from the massive evidence that shows that, for example, fracking, and here I have to depart from the previous speaker, America has got donkey's years of experience in fracking, and we know scientifically it's beyond proof beyond need for further proof, that fracking causes rather less damage, earth movements, tremors, or whatever you choose to call them, than coal mining ever did. Yes. A perfectly safe process to keep ourselves independent for fuel needs. Now, I'm entirely in agreement with the need to do whatever we can to make sure that our homes are properly insulated. And so I'm happy to agree with that part of the motion. But when I look at the damage that's done with all these magic windmills, I wonder how many people here wonder or even realise the extent or exactly how wind power is generated. You need enormously powerful magnets to make them work. And because rare minerals like lithium are quite sparsely distributed across the Earth's surface, you have to move mountains of earth to get minimum amounts of the metals to which Councillor Rowan has already mentioned. This is nonsense. It's just the left again promising nirvana and heaven. The irony is that the closer we get to their dreams of a wondrous life, the more like hell it begins to look. Anywhere across the world will give you the same view. I will not support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor.
Next speaker is Councillor Marsh, number 9.
Councillor Marsh.
There are many innovative ideas being looked at for batteries, including heating up water, salt, using deep coal mines. There are many, many technologies being advanced, and indeed, if there was more investment, then those things would be moving forward more quickly. I would commend all members to watch the excellent but terrifying last instalment of David Attenborough's Frozen Planet. Just those heartbreaking, looking at the melting, there's this wonderful tundra full of lovely flowers, and then you look at the end of it and vast amounts of mud are just cascading down. Also the extraordinary loss of ice. I know it's not easy, it's not comfortable, but we have to stop subsidising fossil fuel extraction and move to a much, much more targeted and rapid and urgent investment in renewables.
Thank you, Councillor. Next one.
Councillor Davis.
Councillor
number
Davis.
3.
I just think it's really appropriate that today we're celebrating that horrendous tragedy in Aberfan. And I just thought it would be worthwhile speaking the poem, seeing as we're talking about the cost of energy. In the dark Welsh valley, on the mountainside, lay the little children close to where they died. Their little lives are ended before they reach their goal. Tender little children have paid the price for coal. I will absolutely be supporting this motion today.
Thank you. Next one.
No further speakers, Chairman?
No further speakers? So, yes, going to that now. Right. We now come to Councillor Yolandi Watson. You want to speak? No, you don't have a chance to speak either. Sorry. So, have any amendments been received?
No, Chair.
No amendments have been received. And now, can we have Councillor Watson, please? You've got 3 minutes.
Number 18, thank you. In 2019, it was said under Understanding Herefordshire that Herefordshire had 14,000 homes in fuel poverty. Rural households are more likely to be living in older, less efficient homes and have a lower than average household income. At the moment, the UK government props up the oil and gas sector with nearly £14 billion in subsidies, which could be used to financially support average homeowners to insulate their homes, which will make them less dependent on fossil fuels. It will encourage private investment alongside better efficiency standards. and will increase jobs, assure the markets, and it has been shown that the green industries can create 3 times as many jobs as those in oil and gas. Insulating homes will mean short-term, cheaper bills. More efficient homes mean better EPC ratings, which make it more attractive to home buyers and renters. Insulating homes mean less carbon and, more importantly, no mould, no drafts, meaning better health and well-being for the short and long-term health of those individuals. We need policies to help people and businesses now, not later. It's a no-brainer. To answer Councillor Gandy and Swinglehurst, the short term that we know that the short term in government terms is until April 2023, and that there are targeted measures after being looked at by the Treasury. But as we have seen in the last 45 days, a lot can change in 45 days. With the current chaos in government, I'm hoping that this motion is a statement that we need something done now. Yes, we've got homegrown gas. We're fortunate, but as Lord Devon said, licences would take years to produce our own gas and would not reduce energy prices. The building strategy that Councillor Durkin measured is actually really a focus for heat pumps, not heating. Making and installing millions of heat pumps will result in substantial emissions. Actually, it's called embodied carbon. Another option, we could tax the oil and gas industry. Norway gets $21 per barrel, 21 pounds of tax per barrel of oil. The UK gets £2 per barrel. Councillor Swinglehurst talks about our reliance on Russian gas. The UK receives less than 3% of gas. 35% is for the continent. I ask, if you are not able to support this motion, please offer amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Now, the proposer of the motion has the right of reply to the debate, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to run quickly through as many of the points as I can. Councillor Gandy said it's important to understand what's already in place before asking for more. Well, I cited statistics on this that show that what's currently in place is an energy efficiency programme that is less than 5% of the scale of what it used to be just a decade ago. It is grossly inadequate. And I know from my portfolio work that what is in place in terms of government financing is tiny piecemeal bits of funding that come on a one-year basis only, extremely narrow, very inflexible, and they do not allow the development of the supply chain that is required and the certainty that is required, and they do nothing to assist anybody who doesn't live in social housing. A couple of colleagues talked about doing what we can as a council. We absolutely are. We have funded through the Climate Reserve, for example, work to support the development of the supply chain, work to provide home energy audits for owner-occupiers, work to provide, we're just about to sign off on work to provide business energy audits. We've got a fantastic business energy efficiency programme. We have been doing loads, but what we don't have is a government policy framework that assists. Councillor Durkin referred to the heat and building strategy and suggested that somehow I ought to kind of read it before critiquing it. But actually, the Climate Change Committee specifically says that heat and building strategy is lots of warm words and there isn't the policy or the funding to kind of actually implement the things that it says. So we've got lots of warm words, hot air and targets, but we don't have the government action necessary, the finance, the clear practical policy framework that will enable that to happen. And I've given lots of examples, lack of building standards for building new housing, for example. I have to say that I was disappointed that the comments of some Conservative colleagues, I think, just showed the level of complacency on this. There is clearly not enough being done because people are freezing in their homes. We all know, ask anybody, they know they can't get assistance to improve energy efficiency and their homes leak heat. That's the vast majority of households. Everybody can see it. The idea that driving a car currently means that you're barred to stop voting on any form of climate action is frankly ridiculous, I think. It's clear this is the direction we need to go in, and in fact, it is government policy. Arguments about Russian gas, etc., highlight my core point that we need to take steps now to reduce energy demand. That is the energy efficiency entire point. We need to reduce the demand for energy by improving energy efficiency in our housing and buildings. For those who make comments about playing politics and so forth, what else should we be talking about? Our residents are facing a cost of living crisis. Of course we should be talking about cost of living and energy efficiency. I'm very glad to hear that some Conservative colleagues are happy to state their opposition to fracking. It's a bit of a shame that our Conservative MPs were not prepared to do that in Westminster this week. Answering Councillor Johnson, you know, the idea that we can leave fossil fuels in the ground is daydreaming. Well, actually, renewable share of electricity generation was 38%.
Can you bring your speech to the end, please?
Government's own policy is to fully decarbonise the grid by 2035 and ban new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. This is not daydreaming. This is the direction of policy, and we need to move there. I would like to request a named vote.
Thank you. Have we had a... Who has? Councillor Chowns, you've asked for a recorded vote, have you? You need 8 people to support you. I think you have your recorded vote. Thank you. Now we move to the vote. I will call the vote, and members are asked to clearly state whether for, against, or abstain.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll go through the names. There have been some movements of councillors, so if I miss any names, please shout. But I'll try my best. Can you not hear?
Oh, perhaps you can use this one.
I'll try. Is that better?
Oh, that's better. That's it. Well done.
Okay. What I said was there have been movement in councillors. So, if, you know, some people might have gone, some people might have come back. So if I miss any names, please shout at the end. Yeah. So apologies. So if I can go through the names. Andrews, Councillor Andrews Paul, for, against, or abstain, please. For. Councillor Bartlett. For. Councillor Bartram. For. Councillor Balderson.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Bolter.
For.
Councillor Bowen.
Abstain.
Councillor Chowns. For. Councillor Davies. Gemma. Councillor Davies Clare. Is that...
Claire Davies? Councillor Claire Davies?
Is that 4?
4.
Councillor Durkin.
Abstain.
Councillor Foxton. Abstain. Councillor Gandhi.
Abstain.
Councillor Guthrie.
Abstain.
Councillor Hardwick. He's gone. Councillor Harrington.
4.
Councillor Harvey.
4.
Councillor Hewitt.
4.
Councillor Howells.
4.
Councillor Lanson.
Abstain.
Councillor James.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Jones Graham.
Abstain.
Councillor Jones Mike.
Against.
Councillor Kenyon.
Against.
Councillor Lester. Councillor Marsh.
4.
Councillor Matthews.
4.
Councillor Millmore. Is Millmore here?
He's gone.
He's gone. Councillor Norman.
4.
Councillor Phillips. I think Phillips might have gone.
Well, temporarily.
Oh.
But he's not here, so he can't vote.
He's evaporated.
All right, so
I think that's
he's not there.
like him.
Okay, all right, he's not here. Councillor Price.
4.
Councillor Probert. Councillor Roan.
Against.
Councillor Shaw. Councillor Stark. 4. Councillor Stone.
Abstain.
Councillor Summers. Councillor Swinglehurst.
Abstain.
Councillor Simons. Councillor Tillett. Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Tyler. Councillor Watson.
4.
Councillor Wilding. Okay, did I miss anyone? No?
I think you have them all that are here.
Okay.
And the numbers, please.
Yeah.
You will consult.
24. 11 abstained.
Which makes 41, which is the voting number.
24, 6, 11, yeah? Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't need to say the numbers, do I? No.
I would do.
Those voting for, 24. Those against, 6. 11 abstentions. Therefore, that motion is carried. Thank you. And now we come to the next motion. Motion number 2, proportional representation, proposed by Councillor Norman, seconded by Councillor Howells. Councillor Norman, please introduce your motion, and you have 5...
Chairman, Councillor Shaw would like to speak.
Sorry, yes.
I'd like to bring a point of order under 41124, the Constitution.
Yes.
Namely referring to constitutional point 4187. Motions should be on that the motions should be about matters for which the council has a responsibility or which affect the county. I think we can all be agreed that the council has no responsibility for the method of voting in this country. I would also suggest that where it affects the county, it affects every county, and that that it should only be motions that specifically affect this county, as against any others, that should be considered properly by this council. And I consider that we are surely acting ultra vires in seeking to discuss such matters, as well as wasting the time, our time, officer time, and council resources in this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor. May I have some consultation with my legal eagle?
Yes, Chair, this is broadly within the powers of the council. It might not, it's for members to decide whether they want to debate something like this, but I don't think there's anything ultra vires about the council passing a motion like
Perhaps you might like to say this to the full council, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of this matter, there are many motions that councillors discuss that may or may not have direct impact. But as far as this matter is concerned, my view is it does fall within the powers of the council, and I don't take the view that it's ultra vires. Whether it's a sensible motion, that's a political issue, rather than a legal one.
Well, I don't think we'll have any more debate on that, but I would like you to allow us to continue the meeting. Are you all in favour of continuing the meeting?
Yes.
Councillor, sorry? Councillor Shaw.
Then put a motion without notice from the floor under 4.1.92I that we adjourn this debate until the next meeting.
I'd like your advice on this, please.
Chair, it's your discretion, really, whether you want to accept this adjournment request. There's an adjournment request, so is there a second? And then take a vote.
Do we have a seconder, Councillor Shaw? Yes. A lot of seconders. Right. We'll now take a vote on that particular motion. Those for an adjournment of this particular motion. Hands up, please show.
Eighteen.
18. Those against? Any abstentions? That proposal is carried. Therefore, sorry?
For the next meeting, could we therefore, because I know we've got lots on the agenda for the next meeting, could you make as early a statement that it's going to run over 3 hours so that people in my position and...
Yes, I was just about to ask you wanted to carry on, but I did in fact ask that, but you may not have the need for that anymore.
You will next meeting.
Yes,
meeting.
Thank you. Yes, we shall certainly take that into consideration. Councillor Durkin.
Pursuant to what Councillor Shaw was saying and our legal representative, I would be obliged in the interim if we could be advised of what are the relevant or the salient matters that allow us to comment on this proportional representation.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Could you tell us why we are able to talk about something that's countrywide? Reasons why? And we've got no control over it.
That from our legal representative.
I understand that, Chairman. If I may, apologies. I'd like it in writing why, with something we've got no control over, we are allowed to have a motion. Just a written understanding.
I'm sure we'll have that.
Thank you
I will
very much.
ask for that.
Thank
Councillor
you.
James.
Number 15.
Thank you. I have to say, you know, our legal advice is correct. If this is ultra vires, so was the previous motion. So it makes a nonsense of half, well, the majority probably of the motions we've passed in previous years.
Interesting thought. Thank you.
Well, it's a fact.
Well, yes. That will be brought to the next meeting of full council. And that brings us to the closing remarks. Councillor Norman. I can't hear.
As the person who was bringing this motion, I wondered if I might have a very brief word and to really make the point that many councils have already passed a motion similar to this, and I can't think of anything that is more important than giving a voice to a lot of people, a majority of people who don't ever get that voice heard.
Thank you. We shall debate it properly next time, if we may, Councillor Norman. Thank you. And I think that, Councillor Summers, what did you wish to say? Anything new?
Number 17.
It says, Council therefore resolves to write to Her Majesty's Government. It doesn't say they're going to make
Please, I
make
think we
changes.
must leave that. Thank you, Councillor Summers. We'll leave it for the debate. Thank you. And to conclude, I'd like to thank all members of the public and councillors for their attendance at today's meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the Council is the ordinary meeting at 10 a.m. on Friday, the 9th of December. And the time is now 1:12, and the meeting is now closed. Can I check with Democratic Services team that the live stream has been switched off and we are no longer broadcasting?